Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 1, Mirror Moon Cliff. One of the four higher planes. The Infernal Realm. A cold, violet, knife-thin moon was hanging in the night sky, emanating a hazy, devilish violet moonlight which covered the boundless world before them. Rumble, the dark, gloomy waves struck time and time again against the craggy cliff that was 10,000 meters high. Despite trillions of years having passed with the waters of the Starmist Sea continuously striking against it, this crag remained exactly as it had been 10,000 years ago, standing there unmoving. This crag was absolutely straight, like the edge of a knife. Its surface gleamed like a mirror. In the Infernal Realm, it was known as Mirror Moon Ridge. At the highest point of Mirror Moon Ridge, an ancient stone castle that was completely built from violet stone stood. It gave the aura of having been there forever. Only, on occasion, within the violet castle, a few flickers of light would occasionally flash hazily, as though in a dream. In the center of the violet castle, there was an extremely flat empty area that was formed from ancient, earth-colored stones. In this space, there were two enormous magic formations that were 100 meters across. This magic formation was untold times more complicated than the magic transportation formation located in the Arctic ice cap. Next to these two giant magic formations, there were two powerfully built men present. The two men wore violet clothes. On the outside, they wore violet robes with gold trims, and they also had unique violet seal markings on their forehead. Third brother always works so hard. He never gives up any chance he can get to train. The violet-clothed warrior with black hair said. The nearby violet-robed man with silver hair laughed as well. Third brother is so hard-working that most likely he will soon take over the position of commander. As they spoke, the two turned to look at the nearby bald youth who was seated in the meditative position close to them, who wore the same clothes as they did. Rumble. In the empty space, one of the massive magic formations began to emanate a misty light, and then three figures appeared within the distorted space in the center of the magic formation. After the misty light dispersed, they were able to clearly see those three figures. Standing in the center was a youth dressed in a sky-blue robe, while the other two were a golden-haired beauty as well as an impish, delicate-looking youngster wearing a straw hat. The three looked curiously around at their surroundings. Oh ho! The black-haired warrior laughed loudly. How rare! The three which came to the infernal realm this time are all at the deity level. It seems two of them are even gods. The three of them are quite clever. They didn't come at the saint level, haha. Those who come to the infernal realm at the saint level are utter fools. The silver-haired man snickered. The bald man who had been meditating now rose to his feet. This bald man had a pair of icy cold, silver eyes. He walked over and said calmly, "Welcome to the world of experts, the infernal realm." His hoarse voice echoed in the empty space. The three people who had been brought over were Linley, Delia, and Bibi. So powerful. Seeing the three in front of him, Linley couldn't help but grow guarded. These three people should all be more powerful than me. They are most likely gods. However, they could also be high gods. Bibi shouted loudly in excitement, "Wow! Hey, handsome fellas in purple, so this is the infernal realm. Whoa, what a dense elemental aura. Also, there's so many experts here as well. Hey, check those guys out, those six-horned creatures. This is my first time seeing them." In this empty space, aside from those three men in violet, there were dozens of creatures off to one side who looked very strange. Half of them were humanoid, while most of the rest had all sorts of strange appearances, many of which Linley's group had never seen before. The bald man stared coldly with his silver eyes at Bibi. "Shut your mouth." Bibi couldn't help but feel astonished. "I will only say what I have to say a single time. Listen clearly, otherwise, if you get killed, you can't blame me." The bald man's hoarse voice didn't seem to have any tone to it at all. Bibi was clearly rather unhappy, but Linley reached out with his right hand and rested it on Bibi's shoulder, applying just a bit of pressure as he said mentally, "Bibi, this is the infernal realm. We are new here and don't know anything yet. Don't make any more trouble. Lord Beirut might be powerful, but his authority doesn't extend to the infernal realm." Although Bibi was unhappy, he still behaved obediently and stopped making trouble. "Boss, I got it. The three of you came from a material plane. What you need to do now is wait over there." The bald man pointed towards the empty space where those dozens of creatures were quietly standing. Linley couldn't help but turn and look at them. Half of these creatures were humans, while the others were of different species. These dozens of creatures only have 5 deities amongst them. The rest are all saints. Linley could tell at a glance. The bald man continued coldly, "What the three of you need to do is just stand there obediently. You aren't permitted to make any sound, or to run about. You must obey us in all things. If you disobey, then your lives will come to a halt here." The black-haired man laughed loudly. "Listen closely to what my third brother just said. Otherwise, haha." The bald man glanced at the black-haired man, who could only chuckle. The bald man then continued to speak emotionlessly, "I have already told you what I needed to tell you. You are not permitted to speak or ask questions. Tomorrow morning, we will send you off." After speaking, the bald man returned to his corner and began to meditate yet again. The other two glanced at each other and began to laugh. Linley had a thought. "Send us off tomorrow morning? To where?" "Linley, we just arrived in the infernal realm. It's best for us to first get a clear sense of the situation. Let's listen to these men in purple robes for now." Delia's voice rang out in Linley's mind. She held Linley's hand as well. Linley turned and smiled towards Delia, and then led her and Bibi towards the empty space. Linley and Delia only glanced at some of those previously unseen races amongst the creatures present. These are all from material planes. Only, many of these races do not exist in our Yulon continent. Delia chatted with Linley using divine sense with some interest. Linley nodded slightly as well. "Hey, Delia, look at that person over there." There was a person towards the rear of the dozens of people present. His entire body was covered with draconic scales, and there was a draconic horn in the middle of his head as well. He seemed extremely similar to a dragon blood warrior. "Boss, that guy looks so similar to you when you are transformed," Bibi said mentally as well. "Isn't that one of the legendary Draconians?" "Probably." Linley found it quite interesting as well. Just by standing there in that empty area, Linley saw so many different races. Although more than half were humanoid, that was including the 5 deities as well. Any race, upon reaching the deity level, was capable of taking human form. "Linley, from what that bald man just said, it seems that at daybreak, we will be sent away. I imagine that they send people off every day." Delia quickly was able to come to a general deduction. There really are so many material planes. So many come to the infernal realm each day. Linley secretly nodded as well. In the Yulon continent, normally speaking, a person would go to the higher planes perhaps once a century. There were simply too many material planes, however. Even though they all went separately to the infernal realm, each day, many people arrived. In trillions of years, a countless number of experts must have been accumulated here in the infernal realm. Linley glanced at the 3 violet-robed men. Linley had the feeling that the uniform which these 3 men wore had a peculiar aura which caused Linley to feel nervous. That was no ordinary uniform, nor was it something which had simply been formed from divine power. And those seal markings. Linley naturally noticed that the 3 men had a violet seal marking in their forehead. The magic formation once more lit up with misty light. This time, 2 enormous creatures appeared within the magic formation. The 2 were at least 10 meters tall, and their entire bodies were covered with golden fur. They looked like some sort of simian apes. In addition, these two strange creatures actually had black scales growing out of their forehead. Mother of Asterisker, grow smaller. The black-robed man shouted angrily. The two massive creatures that were 3 stories tall, in their own material planes, clearly were the most powerful creatures around. Upon being cursed, one of them grew hot-headed and actually roared back in anger. He even swung his tail viciously towards that violet-robed warrior. You asked for it? The violet-robed warrior stared. A black staff suddenly appeared in his hands, which suddenly elongated. Dozens of black staff shadows suddenly came smashing down, filling the air with a destructive aura, instantly terrifying those two creatures and bringing them to their senses. Only, it was too late. Boom! That 10-meter-tall creature instantly became smashed into a pile of demolished flesh. The other creature immediately shrank in size to just 2 meters tall, staring in terror while speaking in the human tongue, "Milord, spare me. You are in the infernal realm now. Do you still think you are in that material plane? You really asked for it?" The violet-robed warrior snorted. "Listen up. What you need to do right now is stand over there. Don't ask any questions. We'll tell you what needs to be told. What doesn't needs to be told, we'll kill you for asking about. Simply put, don't make any sound and listen to our orders." The black-haired warrior made the black staff disappear with a flip of his hands. "Enough. Go back over there. 6th brother, clean the floor up." The bald man who was meditating suddenly spoke out. The black-haired man looked at the blood-stained ground and the corpse which had been smashed apart. He couldn't help but frown. He immediately turned to stare at that seemingly simian creature. "You, hurry over." The creature couldn't help but tremble. He immediately pointed at himself in confusion, his eyes mystified. He didn't dare make a sound. "Right, I'm talking to you." The black-haired man nodded, and the creature immediately ran over at high speed quite obediently. The black-haired man pointed at the floor. "Right now, hurry up and clean this floor up. If there's a trace of blood left, you can accompany your friend in death." The creature was so frightened he hurriedly nodded. Linley, Bibi, and Delia all felt their hearts shaken in surprise. "Boss, it seems the people here really kill people at the drop of a hat. They don't hesitate at all," Bibi said mentally. Linley glanced at the black-haired man. "He doesn't care at all. So many people come every day to the infernal realm. Who would care about a few people more? Also, that black-haired man is extremely powerful." Delia and Bibi both agreed. They could both sense that the 3 violet-robed men were at least at the god level of power. Just from that technique, we can tell that this black-haired man trains in the way of destruction. His attack just now contained both a material component as well as a spiritual component. It seems he has fused at least 2 profound mysteries. Linley couldn't help but feel astonished at this violet-robed man's power. In addition, Linley could also tell that of the 3 violet-robed men, the most powerful one should have been that cruel-looking bald man. The gravity here in the infernal realm is nearly 100 times stronger than that of the material planes as well. Linley was carefully sensing the differences in this new place. For the gravity to be so strong didn't mean much to deities. When I went to the necropolis of the gods, my spiritual energy was restricted to 1/10,000th of my normal range. But here in the infernal realm, my divine senses range is restricted even more. This was their first trip to the infernal realm. Linley didn't dare to wildly spread out his divine sense and see how far he could stretch. Only, he had the sense that the restrictions on divine sense in this higher plane was far greater than the restrictions the necropolis of the gods had placed on his spiritual energy. Time flowed on, and one human, beastman, or magical beast after another continued to arrive. Many types of creatures continued to be transported to the infernal realm. By the time the red glow of the sun rose above the sea line and shone down upon this castle atop Mirror Moon Ridge, over 100 creatures had arrived from the material planes to the infernal realm. Suddenly, footsteps rang out. From the nearby gate, one after another violet-robed man walked in, chatting and laughing amongst themselves. "Third brother, thank you for standing guard all night." Several violet-robed men chuckled and greeted him. Soon, hundreds of violet-robed men had arrived. Linley wasn't able to detect the strength level of any of these men. Several of them in particular shocked Linley with the strength of their aura alone, capable of stirring up fear like how Atkins had. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 2, Inkstone. Mirror Mooncliff. The empty space in the center of the Violet Castle had hundreds of violet-robed men assembled here, causing the 100+ creatures who had just arrived in the infernal realm to feel fear and shock. Why are there so many experts here? All of them are gods at the least, and that person who seems to be the leader is very possibly a high god. BB rolled his eyes as he spoke to Linley mentally. Linley mentally spoke back, "BB, don't worry about that. Keep waiting. It is daybreak, now. They should send us off." Linley knew for certain that these people were far too powerful. In addition, the uniforms of those violet-robed men all contained a certain aura which caused Linley to feel an inexplicable dread. Silence. A deep voice rang out, and the chattering violet-robed men immediately shut their mouths, no longer daring to speak. At the same time, the hundreds of violet-robed men stepped to one side together in an orderly fashion, causing the 6 other violet-robed men to stand out. These 6 should be the leaders. Linley had seen Atkins, Sadista, and Blue Fire. He could sense that 6 people gave him a similar feeling. There were 4 men and 2 women in the 6. This time, the quality of these newcomers from the material planes isn't bad. There's even a pair of gods. One of the 6, a tall, slender woman with straight shoulders and short hair, glanced at Linley's group, then turned to the other 5 and laughed. "This time, it should be my turn to send them off, right? Amelia, nobody is fighting with you over it?" One of the 6, a slightly fatter man, laughed loudly as he spoke. Amelia laughed as well, then said loudly, "Second Mirror Moon Squad, prepare to move out." "Yes, Captain." A number of those people within the hundreds of violet-robed persons called out loudly. Amelia turned and glanced at the distant gate. A warrior dressed in golden clothes walked out from within the gate, quickly arriving in front of Amelia and coming down to one knee, saying with respect, "Master. Prepare to head out." Amelia said, "Yes, Master." The golden-clothed warrior rumbled. And then, this golden-clothed warrior flew into the air above the Violet Castle. A golden light shone, and the golden-clothed warrior transformed into an enormous golden dragon, at least 100 meters long. Under the blood-red glow of the sun, the golden dragon's scales shone with a dazzling light as it coiled itself above the Violet Castle. Whoosh! An entrance that was 10 meters long suddenly appeared on the flank of the golden dragon. Everyone, including Linley, was shocked. Linley looked carefully. Just now, that golden-clothed warrior was clearly just a saint. But now, he suddenly transformed into a golden dragon, and an entrance appeared on his flank. Linley was filled with questions. "Take all of these newcomers from the material planes inside," Amelia said. Immediately, 49 violet-robed men walked out of the gathering towards Linley's group. Their leader, a bearded warrior, called out, "All of you, obediently go inside. Otherwise, we'll have to use force." Right after these words were said, 10 people in the group of experts Linley was in flew directly towards the flank of the golden dragon, including Linley's group of 3. Upon flying into the flank of the golden dragon, Linley was shocked as well, so apparently, within the belly of this golden dragon, there was a setup like that of a manor. There weren't just chairs and tables, there were even decorations like man-made mountains, metallic flowers, and the like. It was incomparably marvelous. Wow! Many experts who entered couldn't help but sigh in shock. That seemingly simian creature also stared with wide eyes. Boss, this is a metallic creature. BB spoke mentally with Linley. Just like Grandpa Beirut's metallic castle. Metallic creatures are capable of changing into all sorts of forms. However, the size of the changes is limited. Grandpa's metallic castle is much more powerful than this one. Linley was secretly in awe of Lord Beirut. Only today did he realize that the metallic castle which Beirut himself lived in was this incredible. In terms of size, this golden dragon's body was less than a tenth of the size of the metallic castle. Don't just stand there like idiots, sit. Amelia shouted coldly. Immediately, the violet-robed people in the squad began to bark, you two, sit over there. And you three, over there. Hurry up. Mother Asterisker, if you are too slow, I'll send you flying with a kick. Those violet-robed people had no concept of courtesy. Soon, Linley and the other 100+ newcomers from the material planes were arranged into a seating pattern. Captain, where should we send this batch to? A skinny, violet-robed youth asked. Amelia glanced at him, then said calmly, this time, we'll send them to Nightblaze City. Immediately, this flying metallic creature began to move, reaching an astonishing speed as it flew in the direction of the ocean. Crackle! Very strangely, within the belly of the golden dragon, a golden light was flowing everywhere, resulting in the two sides of the golden dragon's belly becoming transparent. Linley and the other experts were able to see straight through the transparent sides of the and see what was outside. It was akin to the glass of the Yulon continent. How curious! Linley said to himself in appreciation. Having a metallic creature like this was quite comfortable. The nearby BB and Delia all stared through the translucent metal towards the outside. Huh! Linley was somewhat astonished. He said mentally to the nearby BB and Delia, this metal creature is traveling so fast. Linley and the others were able to see the speed of movement by looking outside. This was the infernal realm, not a material plane. The gravity here was 100 times that of the material plane. Even Linley, moving at full strength, wouldn't be able to fly this fast. It must be understood, this was just a saint-level metallic creature. Give these newcomers to the infernal realm a general understanding of the affairs of the infernal realm. Amelia said to a nearby skinny, violet-robed youngster. Yes, Captain. The skinny violet-robed youngster immediately stood up and looked at Linley and the others. You have all arrived in the infernal realm from the material realms. I will now give you a general understanding of the infernal realm. The infernal realm, as one of the 4 higher planes, naturally has as many experts as there are clouds in the skies. Now that you are in the infernal realm, you should find a tribe or a clan to join. In the infernal realm, there are primarily 5 large continents that are all but endless in size. These continents are the Redbud continent, the Carol Kaleo continent, the Mujamuya continent, the Blood Ridge continent, and the Jade Float continent. Hearing this, Linley, BB, and Delia all had a thought. Linley's target on this trip was the Indigo Prefecture of the Blood Ridge continent. 5 great continents. The Redbud continent in the north and the Carol continent of the west are already connected to the ends of the plains. In other words, the Redbud continent's northern edges is where the plain ends to the north, while the western side of the Carol continent is where the plain ends to the west. Aside from these 5 great continents, the rest is all ocean. The 5 continents are essentially connected into a circle. Inside the circle is the vast Starmist Sea, which is far greater than any single of the continents in size. The Starmist Sea is the inner sea, while the outer sea is the sea which exists outside the circle of continents and is primarily located to the south and the east of the continents. This outer sea is known as the Chaotic Sea, and it is enormous. The skinny violet-robed youth chuckled when he said this. But of course, this doesn't mean much to you. The size of every single continent is shockingly large, and many experts will spend their entire lives in a single continent. The continent we are currently in is the Redbud continent. Redbud continent? Linley's heart sunk. All of the continents of the infernal realm were astonishingly vast, unlike the simpler Yulon continent. Boss, what should we do? How are we going to get to the Blood Ridge continent? BB couldn't help but reach out to him mentally. Our purpose in coming to the infernal realm, aside from going back to my ancestral clan, is primarily to adventure and explore this place. It's fine if we have a good adventure before heading off to the ancestral clan. Linley messaged back mentally. But although this was what Linley said and thought to himself, he still felt a hint of resignation. The skinny violet-clothed youth continued, in the infernal realm, there are 5 great continents and 2 oceans. These are each governed by the 7 mighty monarchs. They are known here as the 7 rulers of hell. The 7 rulers of hell? Linley's group of people all began to secretly pay attention to this astonishing title. From what he says, these 7 rulers are in charge of the 5 continents and the 2 seas. What sort of person would be able to be so incredible? Linley secretly wondered. The violet-robed youngster had a hint of veneration in his eyes. The mighty 7 rulers of hell are the 7 mighty sovereigns who train in the edicts of destruction. 7 sovereigns. Linley was secretly astonished. This was the highest level of existence. But of course, the almighty sovereigns disdain from interfering in worldly affairs. Generally speaking, most affairs are handled by each of the Lord Prefects. The area where you are headed is the Nightblaze Prefecture. Nightblaze Prefecture covers a circumference of over 1 billion kilometers, and is considered a middle-sized prefecture. As soon as he heard these words, Linley stared in astonishment. A circumference of 1 billion kilometers? His own homeland, the Yulon continent, was only 30,000 kilometers in size. The difference was too vast. Even if he flew non-stop in his Yulon continent, in 24 hours, he would only cover a few 100,000 kilometers. But in the infernal realm, where the gravitational pull was so much stronger, his speed would definitely be much lessened. Just flying through a single Nightblaze prefecture would most likely take a very, very long period of time. And what's more, how could one possibly have the chance to fly about so freely in the infernal realm? The road ahead is truly difficult. Linley said to himself. Boom! A rumble erupted from afar. Everyone stared curiously outside the translucent windows towards the outside. They saw from afar, 2 groups of people fighting in mid-air. Lightning flashed, the wind howled, the earth shattered, over 100 deities were engaging in battle, and the sight truly was astonishing. F***ck off. A cold, angry sound erupted forth from Amelia's lips, transmitting through the metallic dragon and shaking the world. Those 100 wildly battling deities saw the golden dragon, and in particular that diagram on its head. It was a beautiful redbud flower. The redbud army. Quick, flee. These 100+ deities were frightened. Forgetting about their mutual enmities, they immediately fled in every direction. In but the blink of an eye, they had all dispersed and could no longer be seen. On the way over, Linley's group encountered multiple battles involving hundreds of experts, but no matter how powerful they were, upon seeing the golden dragon fly over, they were so frightened that they immediately scurried and fled. This golden dragon flew for a very long time, spending roughly at least a full year. Given the astonishing speed at which the golden dragon flew, and the fact that it had flown in a straight line, how vast a distance had they traveled? We are at the borders of Nightblaze Prefecture. Amelia stood up, stretching and smiling. Fortunately, Nightblaze Prefecture is fairly close to our Mirror Moon Cliff. Last time, when I went to the Snow Lake Prefecture in the north, it took me 10 full years to get there. The skinny, violet-clothed youth stood up as well and said, "The 9 of you who are deities, stand up." Linley and the rest of the 9 all immediately stood up. With a flip of his hand, the skinny violet-clothed produced a black rock that was the size of a fingernail. "One for each of you." This inkstone is something nice. Keep it. Only those who are at the deity level when they arrive in hell will receive it. He gave each of the 9 a piece. Inkstone. Linley stared in astonishment at this inkstone in his hands. The inkstone was in a perfect square, roughly a centimeter on each side. It seemed to be a very unremarkable type of rock, but Linley could sense from within it a unique aura that made his heart tremble. Whoosh! A giant hole suddenly appeared in the flank of the golden dragon. 10 or so experts who had arrived from the material plane were immediately tossed out. Linley, Delia, and Bibi remained within the belly of the golden dragon. They were quite astonished. Laughing, the skinny violet-clothed youth said, "Don't be hasty. It'll be your turn soon." The golden dragon constantly flew, and after a while, 10 or so more were tossed out. By the 4th batch, it finally came to Linley's turn. Whoosh! Their seats beneath them vanished, and a powerful energy stream tossed Linley and the other 10 out. Linley, Delia, and Bibi quickly controlled their movements, then looked closely below. Good heavens, what is that? This was a mountain range, and within the mountain range, there were a large number of black dragons over 100 meters long. At a glance, there were definitely thousands of these black dragons who were stretched out into a web as far as Linley could see. At this time, someone flew over at high speed from amongst those black dragons. This was a silver-haired old man. Laughing, he said, "The 3 of you just arrived in the infernal realm, right? Welcome to my black dragon tribe. If you want to join our black dragon tribe, each of you, please pay a single inkstone. We will be responsible for protecting you. If you are unwilling, then go ahead and roam the infernal realm by yourself." Linley, Delia, and Bibi couldn't help but be amazed. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 3, Black Dragon Tribe. Can you speak a bit more clearly? Linley was utterly confused. As soon as he had come out of the metallic creature, he had run into the silver-haired old man, who immediately asked him for his inkstone. Although he didn't yet have an idea as to what an inkstone was, he could sense the peculiar aura within it. It definitely wasn't an ordinary item. How could he so casually give it to others? Haha, the silver-haired old man's face was all smiles. The 3 of you just arrived, so I'm afraid there are quite a few things you don't know yet. Fine, then. I'll speak a bit more clearly. The silver-haired old man glanced around, then said, "This infernal realm is one of the 4 higher planes. As the plane created by the overgod of destruction, the infernal realm is filled with boundless cruelty and savagery. Massacres are commonly seen in the infernal realm." As he spoke, the old man's eyes dimly glowed red. Linley and the others were secretly startled. The silver-haired old man swept Linley's group with his gaze, then said with absolute certainty, "Although the 3 of you are deities, in the infernal realm, you are in unfamiliar territory. I dare say that if you rashly wander about the infernal realm, you definitely won't live for more than 3 days." Linley, Delia, and Bibi all were slightly shocked. "Old man, are you trying to trick us?" Bibi stared. Although Bibi stared at him, he did so in a very adorable way. The silver-haired old man didn't grow angry either. He said, "Although you have just recently arrived in the infernal realm, on that metallic airship of the Redbud Army, the various lords of the Redbud Army should have told you a few things. Fortunately, you are at the deity level. If you were saints, even if you had inkstones, I couldn't care less about taking you in." Within Linley's mind, a scene suddenly appeared. When they were in that metallic creature, that skinny violet-robed youngster had said, "The infernal realm, as one of the 4 higher planes, naturally has experts as common as the clouds. Since you are in the infernal realm, you had best find a tribe or a clan to join." At that time, Linley hadn't paid too much attention to these words. But now, he somewhat understood. Joining a tribe or a clan. Linley, the infernal realm is actually this dangerous. Delia looked towards Linley, who immediately sent back a consoling message via divine sense. No matter what, we are already here in the infernal realm. It's best to be cautious. Let me ask him about a few things first. Linley looked towards that silver-haired elder and laughed. My name is Linley. Might I ask who you are? Buffett Beaufait. The silver-haired old man smiled. Linley nodded and laughed. Mr. Buffett, I would like to ask, what is this inkstone? We just arrived in the infernal realm, so we don't know anything at all about these things. Haha, the silver-haired elder laughed. That's understandable. This inkstone, to be precise, is the currency for the infernal realm. Currency. Linley, Bibi, and Delia were all surprised. Having lived in the Yulan continent, Linley and the other two understand what a currency meant. The currency of the infernal realm was actually this unusual inkstone. On what basis is this thing considered currency? Linley asked, not understanding. Something that could be used as currency should at least have a certain innate value. Buffett shook his head. I'm not too sure either as to what exactly is so special about the inkstones themselves. But I do know one thing. There is no place in the infernal realm where inkstones can be mined. Only the 7 rulers of hell are able to create them. Based on this alone, inkstones are qualified to be used as currency. Linley nodded slightly. So inkstones were actually created by the 7 rulers. Only, what special uses did inkstones have? Could it be that they were just made for people to look at? Linley still felt that inkstones had some sort of innate, unique value. What can this currency purchase? Linley asked. Buffett chuckled, this currency can buy quite a few things. For example, divine artifacts, divine sparks, divine gemstones. Many more things. Also, some unique items such as amethysts, large golems, and more. But of course, there are some even more miraculous things. In short, this currency is good for many things. Even legendary sovereign artifacts can be purchased using them. Only, the sum required is simply astronomical. Linley began to understand the value of these inkstones. Can you tell me what the price of a demigod spark is? Linley asked. A demigod spark is around 100 inkstones. A demigod artifact is generally only worth around 10 inkstones. Buffett said in a very experienced manner. In the infernal realm, there are deities everywhere, so a demigod spark isn't that valuable. However, god sparks are worth 10,000 inkstones, while high god sparks are worth 10 million inkstones. Buffett sighed. 10 million inkstones. If I had a high god spark, I would become an upper-class figure in the infernal realm. Linley, Bibi, and Delia glanced at each other. They all laughed. Boss, you actually thought that this inkstone was some sort of treasure. Bibi messaged him through divine sense. I just had the feeling that the inkstone itself seemed very unusual. I didn't expect that this inkstone actually isn't worth much at all. Linley's group naturally wouldn't care too much about this inkstone any longer. After all, Linley was carrying demigod artifacts, and even quite a few god artifacts. He even had those 2 high god artifacts which he hadn't used yet. He had a single high god spark as well. By now, Linley, Delia, and Bibi didn't have any further objections to joining the Black Dragon tribe. It was just a single inkstone each, right? If we join your tribe, what if we want to leave in the future? Linley asked. Leave? You can leave whenever you want, of course. Buffett laughed. However, only idiots would leave by themselves. Without the ability to protect yourself, roaming these lands, where danger is omnipresent, is as good as throwing one's life away. In the infernal realm, killing people to steal their valuables is extremely common. Even most gods don't dare to run about wildly. Linley's group glanced at each other. Fine. We accept. With a flip of his hand, Linley brought out his inkstone, while BB and Delia brought out theirs as well. Buffett reached out with his hand, but Linley suddenly pulled his arm back. "No rush. I'll give it to you after we enter your Black Dragon tribe." Buffett was startled, and then he began to laugh loudly. "You are afraid that I'm trying to cheat you? Fine, come with me then." Buffett immediately flew downwards, while Linley, Delia, and BB all followed him down. The infernal realm's gravity was nearly 100 times that of the Yulon continents. Linley could clearly sense that his flying speed was quite a bit lower than in the material plane as well. While flying downwards, BB asked curiously, "Hey, old guy, just now you were talking about the Redbud army. Those Redbud soldiers who escorted us here, who are they? Why is it that on our way over, we encountered many experts battling each other, but as soon as they saw the Redbud soldiers, they immediately were terrified and fled? Oh, I almost forgot to tell you about this." Buffett sighed. "The infernal realm has 5 great continents. The lord of our Redbud continent is a mighty sovereign of destruction, one of the 7 rulers of hell, whom we refer to as the Redbud ruler." Linley and the others knew this. The infernal realm had 5 great continents and 2 oceans, which were controlled by the 7 rulers. The 7 rulers were sovereigns who trained in the edicts of destruction. And this Redbud army is the army under the control of this mighty sovereign of destruction. This is the most powerful army in the entire Redbud continent, and they are completely devoted to the commands of the sovereign, Redbud ruler. The Redbud continent has no one who dares offend the Redbud army. Buffett's eyes were filled with eagerness. Linley and the others were shocked. So it was an army under the authority of a sovereign. No wonder none of the experts they encountered on the way over dared to antagonize the Redbud army. Perhaps a single small unit of the Redbud army isn't that frightening. But if you dare offend a single unit of the Redbud army, then most likely an entire regiment of the Redbud army will come for revenge. Even someone as powerful as our Lord Prefect of the Nightblaze Prefecture, who might be able to deal with a regiment, would most likely then face the entire Redbud army which would come for revenge. In the entire Redbud continent, there is virtually no one who dares offend the Redbud army. Buffett looked at Linley and the others. "You have to remember this. In the Redbud continent of the infernal realm, no matter what, do not offend this Redbud army. Offending them is disastrous. They are so powerful, and no one dares offend them." "Then why haven't you joined the Redbud army, Mr. Buffett? I saw that many members of the Redbud army were gods. Aren't you a god as well?" Linley joked. "Don't you think I want to?" Buffett shook his head and sighed. "The requirements for joining the Redbud army are very strict. First of all, you had to have become a deity on your own. Anyone who became a deity through fusing with a divine spark is immediately eliminated from consideration. This has caused more than 90% of the people in the infernal realm to have no hope of joining. And the second requirement is, you have to at least be a god, and have to go through a competition. Each time, they only recruit a very low number of people. Those capable of obtaining victory in the competition all have at least some sort of unique ability." Linley couldn't help but sigh in astonishment at the quality of this Redbud army. The weakest of them were gods, and gods who had become deities through their own power. In addition, they then were selected through a tournament. Over the countless years, the number of truly powerful experts who had been recruited into the Redbud army was unimaginably high. No wonder nobody in the Redbud continent dared to offend the Redbud army. Linley and the others landed on the ground. "Roar! Roar!" A series of roars rang out from the massive mountains in front of them. Countless enormous black dragons that were over 100 meters long lay coiled throughout the mountain ranges. If one took a careful look, one would discover that every single enormous black dragon had a human standing or sitting atop of them. "This is our Black Dragon tribe." Buffett clearly was very proud. "Come, follow me inside." As he spoke, Buffett strode forward. The mountain paths were winding, but Linley and the others were able to move forward easily. "Hey!" BB suddenly exclaimed in surprise, "Boss, that seems to be adamantite." Linley turned. From not too far away, he did indeed see a small hill formed from adamantite. Such an enormous amount of adamantite caused Linley to feel astonished as well. Seeing Linley stare in astonishment at the distant adamantite, Buffett couldn't help but laugh. "That is adamantite. This is a very common type of ore in the infernal realm. You'll see it everywhere. Look, over there, that blue ore? That's blue nightmare ore. In terms of toughness, it is comparable to adamantite, but in terms of elasticity, it is actually even a level superior. However, these things can be seen everywhere. In the infernal realm, divine artifacts are quite worthless. If you want a divine artifact, you can just have a demigod spend 10,000 years cultivating it, and then you'll have a demigod artifact. But this will only be worth 10 or so inkstones." Linley, Delia, and BB maintained their silence. Indeed. Only after cultivation and nourishing would a divine artifact's power increase. A newly forged divine artifact couldn't even be considered a demigod artifact, just an ungraded weapon. "Buffett, you brought 3 more people. Haha, our tribe's population has increased yet again." From afar, a voice rang out. An enormous black dragon flew over, and someone flew down from the black dragon's back. He wore a blue turban atop his head, and he appeared quite robust. Buffett laughed. "They just arrived in the infernal realm." "Hey!" BB blinked his eyes. "It looks like everyone here is a deity. Why do you raise these black dragons? These are all just saints." The robust man who had flown down laughed. "Don't underestimate them. This type of black dragon is a very unique race of black dragons. It is known as the Gerardia Elita black dragon race. The saliva of Gerard black dragons is quite valuable. If you raise a Gerard black dragon, after 10,000 years, you'll have earned thousands of inkstones. You fellows are quite lucky to be able to join our black dragon tribe. If you join the other tribes, you wouldn't be as well off as you are with us." Buffett said as well, "Indeed. If other deities wanted to join our tribe, we wouldn't even be willing to accept them. You were sent over by the Redbud army, however. So clearly you came from the material planes. You aren't a spy from the enemy tribes." Linley's group began to laugh helplessly. So the reason why the tribe accepted them was because the 3 of them were very innocent. "Haha, we have new brothers, eh?" Many of the dragon riders let out loud laughs. "Since you've arrived at our black dragon tribe, in the future, we will all be brothers. Haha, Buffett, hurry up and pick a place for them to live." Linley glanced at those distant black dragon riders, and in his heart, he felt a surge of warmth. It seemed that the people of the black dragon tribe were all quite good. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 4, Royal Wing City. Every single black dragon had a rider on its back, the vast majority of which were men. Men still make up the vast majority of those who reached the deity level. Linley said to himself. Actually, in both the Yulon continent's experts as well as in the Redbud army of the infernal realm, or currently here in the black dragon tribe, the male to female ratio showed a simple truth. Few women. Many men. Linley, don't just stand there like an idiot. Hurry up and follow me. That Buffett flew deeper into the mountains, and Linley, Delia, and BB followed him. The meandering, winding mountains grew deeper and deeper. Everywhere in the mountains, residences could be seen now, all of which appeared so marvelous. To deities, building a residence was a very simple task. After flying for a while, Buffett led Linley's group to land halfway up a high mountain. The area here was very large, at least 100 meters across, more than enough for one to build a fairly large residence at. In the future, you can stay here. As for the residence, you don't need me to help you build it, right? Buffett laughed. Ha ha, Linley laughed as well, and then suddenly stomped on the ground. The floor of the mountain trembled, and a strange vibration spread out. One enormous boulder after another began to float into the air, and in accordance with a set rhythm, connected with each other. Light from the dimly glowing yellow earth elemental essences shot out in every direction. Buffett stared in great surprise at this scene. Soon, a two-story building with a simple courtyard was finished. The stones of the infernal realm really are heavy. Linley let out a sigh. These stones were all similar to adamantite. In addition, the gravity here in the higher plane of the infernal realm was 100 times that of the Yulon continent, causing each boulder to weigh as much as a small mountain peak in the Yulon continent. So easily accomplished and so harmoniously done. Linley, can it be that you've already reached the level of mastery in the profound mysteries of the essence of the earth? Buffett said with great surprise. Not yet. Linley shook his head. Buffett said unhappily, Linley, don't try to hide it. To be able to lift something so heavy with such ease and use these boulders of the infernal realm to create a manner, especially when making those boulders move in such a fluid, harmonious way, although I don't train in the laws of the earth, I've seen quite a few people who train in the laws of the earth. Linley chuckled and didn't say anything further. Actually, Linley truly hadn't yet reached the level of mastery in the profound mysteries of the essence of the earth. Only, because he had fused it with the throbbing pulse of the world, when utilizing it. It contained the profound truths of the throbbing pulse of the world. Naturally, he made it look easy. You can live without fear here in my Black Dragon tribe. I won't disturb you any further. If you need anything, in the future, you can ask me or ask anyone else. Buffett said. Thank you, Mr. Buffett. Linley smiled. After Buffett left, Linley, Delia, and Bibi entered their own residence. It seems we'll have to make our own tables and chairs as well. Linley and the other two immediately began to take action. Linley controlled a boulder, making it fly over, and then used his palm to chop down using the principles of the dimensional decapitator. The boulder was immediately chopped into an extremely slick, smooth surface. A black dagger appeared in Bibi's hands as well. It was extremely fierce. In front of Bibi, a stone table quickly took form. As the three worked together, the stone table and 3 stone chairs quickly were completed. Whew! Fortunately in the habit, I habitually store wine and some other things in my interspatial ring. Otherwise, in this place, we wouldn't have anything to drink. With a flip of his hand, Linley withdrew a flask of fine wine, and Bibi immediately called out in jubilation, "Boss, you brought this as well." The infernal realm. A strange new place. Drinking the wine, Linley let out a sigh. As soon as they had entered the infernal realm, the vast majority of people they had encountered were all deities. The weakest member of that Red Bud army was a god, that went without saying. But even here in the Black Dragon tribe, everyone was a deity. This was a world of deities. Boss. The distance between us and that blood-rich continent is way too far. What we going to do? Bibi was somewhat worried. That Buffett even said that if we run around wildly, we probably won't live for more than 3 days. Delia frowned as well. Let's not be hasty. Let's first find our footing here in the infernal realm. Linley nodded as well. The infernal realm isn't the Yulon continent. Experts are as common as the clouds. We can't just go wherever we want to go. Everything else aside, we don't even know the general, basic geography of the infernal realm. Knock. Knock. Suddenly, the sound of knocking on the door could be heard. I'll get the door. Bibi leapt over, then easily pulled open the extremely heavy stone door. Behind the stone door, there was a delicate-looking, golden-haired youngster, who laughed as he greeted them. Hey there. I'm Crate Quay Te. I live very close to you. My name is Linley. Please, come in. Linley rose and spoke. Linley could immediately tell that this Crate was a demigod. My big brother and I live together to your north, also halfway up the mountain. I heard you just arrived in the infernal realm. Crate was very warm and friendly. Please take a seat. This is some fine wine from my homeland. Have a taste. Linley said. Wine. Crate's eyes lit up, and he immediately sat down at the seat which Bibi had been sitting on. He hurriedly drank a cup, half closing his eyes in satisfaction. This wine really is excellent. Although it can't compare to the fine wine sold in Royal Wing City, it's quite good to be able to drink any wine at all. Royal Wing City. Linley was somewhat puzzled. Suddenly understanding, Crate said, "Oh, right, you just arrived in the infernal realm. There's many things you don't know, in our Nightblaze Prefecture. There are a total of 10 cities that are scattered throughout Nightblaze Prefecture. The city closest to us is Royal Wing City, roughly 10 million kilometers away or so." Linley and the others were shocked. 10 million kilometers, and that was the nearest one? However, to enter Royal Wing City, you have to pay a fee of an inkstone. Crate cursed softly. They really are greedy. Crate let out a sigh. Only, if you actually want to buy some things, or sell off your dragon saliva, or a divine artifact, it's still better to do the trade within Royal Wing City. Trade can only be done in Royal Wing City. Delia didn't quite believe it. It makes sense for large transactions to be made within Royal Wing City. But what about smaller transactions? As Delia saw it, this was the sort of logic of the stores of the Yulon Plain. Cities had larger stores, while smaller towns also had some small shops. Generally speaking, smaller transactions can be carried out at the chief's place within the tribe. However, generally speaking, a demigod artifact can be sold for 7 inkstones in Royal Wing City, while the chief will only give you 5 inkstones for it. Crate was somewhat unhappy about this. Linley and the others understood. After all, Royal Wing City was over 10 million kilometers away from here. Wait. I heard Buffett say that a divine artifact was worth around 10 inkstones. Bibi said, and Linley suddenly remembered as well. Crate said disdainfully, when he said 10 inkstones, he was referring to the selling price in Royal Wing City, the retail price. When we sell them, we naturally are only able to get 7 inkstones. Crate, I want to ask you, if I wanted to go to another continent, how should I go? Linley asked. Crate stared. Another continent? Good heavens! Redbud continent is already enormous. In the entire infernal realm, there are a total of 108 prefectures. Our Redbud continent seems to have nearly 20 prefectures, each one of which covers an extremely vast area. Going to another continent is too hard. Linley had a thought. A continent only has nearly 20 prefectures. It seems each Lord Prefect has an extremely high status as well. In the infernal realm, the status of the Lord Prefects was second only to the 7 rulers. Whew, this wine really is nice. Crate drank another cup of wine, then stood up. Laughing, he said, "You just arrived, so I won't disturb you any further. In the future, if there's anything you need, you can come look for me." Right. Linley, that beauty next to you, be careful. The infernal realm has too few women. I expect that some people will come to try and pursue and woo that beauty you have there. Linley and Delia were both astonished. Who dares? I'll off him with my knife. Bibi growled angrily. Ha, I'm just saying. Anyhow, I'll leave now. Crate chuckled twice, then left. Linley and Delia glanced at each other, then began to laugh. Delia said softly, "Linley, in the future, if someone is pursuing your wife, what will you do?" "What will I do? I'll clobber any who comes." With a flip of his hand, Linley retrieved the adamantine heavy sword and gave it 2 twirls. Chasing after someone else's women really did happen quite frequently. With Linley's group in the Black Dragon tribe, there really were people who came to get into Delia's good graces. However, Delia herself shouted at them. While Linley in particular transformed into 3 clones and began to trample on them as BB would add a few flying kicks. Quickly, nobody in the Black Dragon tribe dared to have any further designs on Delia. They had already been in the Black Dragon tribe for 2 months. Linley and the other 2 had slowly grown accustomed to this place. 2 fighting over a single woman. The 2 men are both demigods. Neither of them know how to use spiritual attacks. All they can do is use material attacks. Linley raised his head up to stare in the air above the Black Dragon tribe. 2 muscular figures were engaging in a battle. Not just Linley and BB were watching. There were thousands of people present, watching this battle, nearly a quarter of the total population of the Black Dragon tribe. What's going on with those 2? Why do they have to fight? Can't they just ask what that girl named Caitlin Lin wants? Delia was somewhat puzzled. At this time, a figure wearing a grass hat flew over at high speed. BB laughed repeatedly. Boss, I already know the inside details on their battle. Tell. Linley said with curiosity. That golden-haired man is named Kendida Gondita. Kendida and that Caitlin come from the same material plane. Their relationship is quite good. But of course, they haven't reached the stage of sleeping on the same bed yet. BB rubbed his nose, raising his head as he spoke. That black-haired man is Kimpton Jinpi Udun. He used to be a Gerard Black Dragon. Linley was somewhat surprised. Did you just say that Kimpton was one of the Gerard Black Dragons they raised? The Black Dragon tribe raised Gerard Black Dragons to earn Inkstone. Linley's group knew this. The Black Dragon tribe had a rule. If a Gerard Black Dragon was able to reach the deity level and transform into human form, then they could join the Black Dragon tribe. Because of this rule, the Gerard Black Dragons all had a hint of a hope for the future. Right. BB nodded hurriedly. That Kimpton was originally a Gerard Black Dragon that had been raised here. After a long period of time, the Gerard Black Dragon actually reached the deity level. That's Kimpton. Linley grew curious. Perhaps because of how long she had been raising him for, Caitlin treated Kimpton very well. When Kimpton transformed into human form, he actually began to pursue Caitlin. This black dragon has fallen for Caitlin. BB began to snicker. Naturally, this makes Kendida unhappy. How can he allow the woman he likes to be together with a black dragon, even if the black dragon is now in human form? Thus, the 2 began to fight. Only, they are just demigods, and they only have insights into very basic mysteries. Their attacks are essentially non-lethal, which is why their battle has gone on for so long. This isn't the first or second time this has happened. Linley couldn't help but feel speechless. But right at this moment, from afar, a black-robed shadow flew over in the air above the mountain ranges. The 2 battling demigods, upon seeing the newcomer, were immediately frightened and flew down at high speed. Upon seeing the medallion this black-robed man wore on his chest, a sharper-eyed onlooker was shocked as well and cried out in alarm, "Ah, a fiend!" The other onlookers of the Black Dragon tribe who had been watching the battle all raised their head, and their faces instantly changed from fear. They immediately scattered in every direction. Fiend. Linley raised his head in confusion. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 5, Fiend Medallion. The highest mountain peak in the mountain ranges where the Black Dragon tribe lived pierced towards the heavens like a sharp sword. Atop the mountain peak, there was an ancient black castle, which was completely made out of adamantite. According to legend, the owner of this black castle dearly loved adamantite. Whoosh! The black-robed figure who had been termed a fiend swept the terrified members of the Black Dragon tribe with his gaze, then flew directly into that black castle. The gates to the black castle swung open, and immediately, People came to respectfully take this fiend in. The many other members of the Black Dragon tribe, upon seeing this, couldn't help but begin chatting amongst themselves. The fiend actually went to visit the chief. He isn't going to go kill the chief, is he? Your original body was that of a six-eared donkey. Even as a deity, you are an idiot. Think about it. If the fiend truly came to kill the chief, would the chief send people to open the castle gates and respectfully escort the fiend inside? As I see it, the chief definitely has something important to carry out, which is why he invited a fiend to come. The members of the Black Dragon tribe continued to discuss this amongst each other. Halfway up the mountain, Linley sat atop a boulder, listening to these conversations. He couldn't help but frown. Raising his head high, he looked towards that black castle located atop the mountain peak. That black castle had dozens of enormous black dragons coiling around it. The master of Black Dragon Castle is the chief of the Black Dragon tribe, Sturton Site, the most powerful figure of the Black Dragon tribe. Linley murmured to himself. Having spent 2 months in the Black Dragon tribe, Linley had learned a few things about it. The Black Dragon tribe, despite just being one of many unremarkable, small tribes in the infernal realm, had a very strict hierarchy. The lowest class included the demigods like Linley. They had no income, nor did they have any uniforms. The middle class included the gods who were in charge of rearing the Gerard Black Dragons. After all, the entire Black Dragon tribe only had so many black dragons, so only a small number of people could raise black dragons. Although more than half of the income from rearing these black dragons had to be given to the clan chief, rearing Gerard Black Dragons was still an extremely fast way of accumulating wealth. The upper class was made up of the tribe's army. The soldiers of the army were all gods, and were trained and drilled by Chief Sturton. If one became a member of the tribe's army, the chief would gift some money once every 10,000 years or so. Halfway up the mountain, at Linley's residence, only Linley, Delia, and Bibi were present. That fiend is so powerful. Bibi sighed in praise. The chief's power won't be low either. Linley said as though thinking about something. Delia glanced at Linley, then said, "Forget about the entire infernal realm, even in the Nightblaze prefecture of the Redbud continent, there are countless numbers of tribes that have taken over some of the mountains in this prefecture which has a circumference of over 1 billion kilometers." Whenever he thought about the terrifying size of the Nightblaze prefecture, he could imagine how many other Black Dragon tribe-sized powers were present. In the infernal realm, powers like the Black Dragon tribe were indeed like weak, unremarkable ants. There were far too many of them. However, even in the Black Dragon tribe, there were so many gods. Although I've never seen Lord Chief Sturton, I imagine that for him to be able to become the chief of the Black Dragon tribe and have more than half of the tribe's wealth delivered to him, he should be a high god. Linley suddenly understood. In the infernal realm, deities were nothing more than commoners. Probably 1 out of every 10 deities were gods, while only 1 out of every 10,000 deities were high gods. But although the chances were very low, when one thought about how enormous the infernal realm was, one would understand how many high gods there were as well. This is what it means to be in the infernal realm. The place where experts are as common as clouds. Linley's heart trembled. "Boss." Bibi gnawed on a straw, saying casually, "My grandpa said that in a place like the infernal realm, those who became deities through fusing with divine sparks can't possibly gain a high status. Only those who became deities on their own, and also have fused profound mysteries, have that chance. Only by being strong will one have a high status." Linley agreed with this in his heart. "Linley, I won't slow you down," the nearby Delia suddenly said. Linley turned to look at Delia. Naturally, he understood what Delia was thinking. Delia was that sort of very strong-willed woman. Linley couldn't help but laugh as he took Delia into his arms. "Delia, you slow me down? If you think about it, in our group here, I'm the only demigod. It's me slowing you down. Delia felt a warm feeling in her heart. How could she not know that in truth, Linley, who was in possession of a soul-protecting sovereign artifact, was the one amongst the three of them with the most variables in play. Once he truly went all out, if Linley were to encounter for instance those enemies that were most proficient in soul-based attacks, he would be able to counter them perfectly. It's broad daylight, you guys. Get a room. Arg, I can't watch anymore. Seeing this, BB called out while covering his eyes. Little rascal. Delia couldn't help but laugh while scolding him. At this time, that silver-haired elder, Buffett, flew over from afar. Seeing Linley and the other two, he laughed loudly. Linley, you've been in our Black Dragon tribe for a while now. How do you feel? Not bad. Linley immediately rose to his feet with a smile. At least, we haven't encountered any dangers yet. Buffett said with a sigh, right. If you were outside, you would learn that there are simply too many bandit groups that ambush and slaughter travelers in the infernal realm. Generally speaking, gods and demigods don't dare to travel the infernal realm alone. Even gods don't dare. BB stared. Buffett went to a nearby stone chair and sat down, then nodded. Right. Not even gods. The bandit groups of the infernal realm are generally formed by demigods and gods. Do you think an entire group of bandit gods and demigods wouldn't be able to deal with you, a single god? They have the advantage of numbers. Then, why don't high gods act as bandits? BB continued. Haha. Buffett laughed. High gods, even in the infernal realm, can be considered upper-class individuals. Why would they engage in something as dangerous as banditry? Whether through cultivating high god artifacts, by refining divine jewels, or by joining a large clan and becoming a strong supporter, they are easily able to live carefree lives. Linley nodded slightly. It was the same as the Yulon Plain, actually. True experts, such as those experts of the 9th rank, disdained banditry. However, in the Yulon continent, there were still some famous bandit groups which had a few powerful experts in them. But of course, the infernal realm has a few exceedingly powerful bandit groups. Only bandit groups like these will have high gods. However, even if they have high gods, they generally won't act against another high god. After all, how would they know how powerful that other high god is? There are great gaps in power between high gods as well. Buffett sighed. Linley agreed completely. For example, Sadista had been killed by blue fire with one blow. Adkins, when facing Beirut, had both his high god bodies destroyed in just 2 blows. In our infernal realm, although there are many bandits who ambush and attack people, there are 3 powers that they don't dare to offend. The first is the Red Bud Army. In a warm manner, Buffett continued to provide Linley's group with some things that were common knowledge, while Linley and the other 2 listened carefully. Linley's group was planning to head towards the Blood Ridge continent, after all. Only, right now they were too weak. They had to endure for now. Red Bud Army. Got it? Linley and the other 2 nodded. That was an army under the control of a sovereign, an extremely powerful army. Who would dare antagonize them? The second power is the prefectural army. Buffett sighed. Prefectural army. Linley and the other 2 were puzzled. What's a prefectural army, old man? BB asked, not understanding. Buffett said, the entire infernal realm has 108 prefectures, and our Redbud continent has nearly 20 as well. Every single prefecture has its own army. For example, our Nightblaze prefecture naturally has the Nightblaze army. These armies are known as prefectural armies. Within their own prefecture, everyone is glad if the army doesn't make trouble for them. Who would dare go antagonize the army? Once the army has their sights on you, even if you are a high god, you'll be in for trouble. Linley understood now. The Redbud Army and the Prefectural Army, I can both understand. They are both giant armies. Then what is that third force which you said bandits are unwilling to antagonize? Linley asked. Buffett's eyes revealed a hint of anticipation. Fiends. Fiends. Linley, Delia, and Beebe's hearts trembled. At the same time, they grew curious. Mr. Buffett, what are fiends? Delia asked. Linley was extremely curious as well. Just now, they had watched that black-robed man fly into the chief's adamantine castle. The people of the Black Dragon tribe, upon seeing that man, referred to him as a fiend. Fiend is a type of title. Buffett said with a sigh. They are the valiant warriors of the infernal realm, a group of experts that fear no danger. Anyone capable of becoming a fiend, even when roaming throughout the entire infernal realm, won't encounter many bandit groups willing to act against them. Linley's heart was stirred. He thought to himself, I'm going to the Blood Ridge continent. The journey there will be an extremely long one. If I can become a fiend, then I will encounter many fewer difficulties on the way over. Beebe and Delia had the same thought as well. What sort of a title is fiend, old man? How does one become a fiend? Beebe asked. Buffett said, to become a fiend isn't too hard. You can go to any city, such as our closest Royal Wing City. At Royal Wing City, if you spend 10,000 inkstones, you can apply for a testing mission. Once you pass the testing mission, you will become a fiend. That is, you will become a 1-star fiend. 10,000 inkstones, just for a testing mission. Beebe couldn't help but stare. Linley felt that this was too extravagant as well. 10,000 inkstones weren't so easily earned. Just now, you said 1-star fiend. Buffett nodded. Fiends have ranks, going from 1-star fiends to the terrifying 7-star fiends. This has to do with the level of missions they can accept. Those who are capable of accomplishing 7-star missions are known as 7-star fiends. However, it is generally only possible for gods to accomplish even the simpler testing missions. Buffett said with a sigh. And that's just a possibility. The work which fiends engage in is dangerous. They are all valiant. Even robbers aren't willing to antagonize them. The most important thing is, you can't tell the star rank of a fiend by looking at them. From the surface, one can't tell the difference between a 1-star fiend and a 7-star fiend. Buffett said. From the surface? What do you mean? Buffett smiled as he pointed at the black castle atop the mountain peak. Didn't you notice? That fiend who came just now had a fiend medallion attached to the clothes over his chest. These are issued after a person completes the testing mission. Every single fiend has the same fiend emblem. Regardless of whether you are a 1-star fiend or a 7-star fiend, from the surface, you look the same. Only through using some very special methods can one judge a fiend's star rank. Beebe frowned. Oh? How powerful is that fiend? I'm not sure either. However, even the weakest fiends are gods. Generally speaking, above-average fiends are all of the high god level. Buffett said. Thus, bandits don't dare to antagonize fiends. After all, many fiends are high gods. If you encounter a 6-star fiend or a terrifying 7-star fiend, no matter how powerful your bandit group is, you will be finished. Linley's heart shook. The majority of fiends were high gods. The weakest were gods. It seemed that the quality of fiends wasn't lower than that of the Redbud Army at all. Beebe's eyes were shining. You say more than half of fiends are high gods. How powerful are those powerful 7-star fiends? 7-star fiends are amongst the most powerful experts of the infernal realm. Buffett's eyes had a hint of veneration in them. Ordinary high gods are unable to fight back against them at all. Once you reach the rank of 7-star fiend, you will have your own unique title. For example, in our Redbud continent, based on what I know, we have produced figures like the Silver Moon Fiend and the Blood Violet Fiend, Ultimate experts whose fame has spread throughout the entire infernal realm. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 6, Red-eyed with greed. That powerful. In his heart, Linley was astonished and trembling at the might of these 7-star fiends. Based on what he is saying, the power of these 7-star fiends should be amongst the most powerful of high gods. I wonder if Blue Fire has the power of a 7-star fiend or not. Linley wondered to himself. Uh-oh. I came to discuss something else. How'd we get sidetracked onto fiends? Buffett said hurriedly. Linley, the reason I came here today was because I want to ask the three of you something. Oh, Mr. Buffett, please ask away. Linley said. Ask the three of us. BB rubbed his jaw, staring at Buffett. Smiling, Buffett said, precisely speaking, it's the two of you. And he pointed at BB and Delia. Oh. Delia was somewhat puzzled as well. What is it, old man? Speak, hurry. BB urged. Buffett said, in our Black Dragon tribe, the vast majority of those at the rank of God will become a member of our guardian army. The two of you have already become gods. I wonder if you'd be interested in joining the Black Dragon tribe's army. If you join the army, every 10,000 years, the chief will gift you with your salary. This is a much better life than rearing those Gerard black dragons. If you rear those dragons, you always have to be by their side. It is quite tiring. This. BB hesitated, looking towards Linley. Delia laughed and spoke. Mr. Buffett, we just arrived at the Black Dragon tribe. There's many things we aren't familiar with yet, so we aren't in a rush to join the tribe's army either. You won't be able to make money as fast through doing other things as through the army. Buffett said hurriedly. I urge you to reconsider. Mr. Buffett, let's discuss this again in the future. Linley said. He had planned long ago that when the chance arose, they would go to the Blood Ridge continent. How could they always stay here at the Black Dragon tribe? Receive a salary every 10,000 years? To other deities, 10,000 years truly wasn't a long period of time, but to Linley, there was no way he could wait that long. I just came to let you know. Buffett didn't mind. Mr. Buffett. Linley hurriedly asked, I would like to ask you, how often do people of the tribe go to Royal Wing City? Comparatively speaking, Royal Wing City had to have more powerful forces present. He might be able to find a way to travel to the Blood Ridge continent there. Go to Royal Wing City. Buffett was startled. Oh, our tribe doesn't go there on any set schedules. We have to ride metallic creatures to get there. It can range from a short wait of a few years, or perhaps thousands of years between trips. Linley's heart couldn't help but lurch. Thousands of years? He had to wait that long? Buffett suddenly laughed and said, oh, I just remembered, in half a year, it seems the tribe will make a trip to Royal Wing City. However, the members of the tribe have to pay 5 inkstones each if they want to ride on that metallic creature. Buffett warned Linley and the other two. He could tell that Linley's group truly wanted to head to that Royal Wing City. Actually, every single person who had just arrived in the infernal realm would be very interested in visiting the large cities in the infernal realm. Thank you, Mr. Buffett. Linley felt a surge of joy in his heart. Just half a year. After Buffett left, Linley's group began to drink and celebrate happily in their living room. In the infernal realm, wine was quite a luxury. Of course, Royal Wing City had some extremely excellent wine, but the price was astoundingly high. The price of some fine wine could compare to that of a god spark. Each of us have to pay 5 inkstones to ride on that metallic creature. BB cursed softly. How black-hearted. 3 of us. That means 15 inkstones. Delia looked at Linley. It seems we need to sell off some divine artifacts. Linley was currently in possession of high god artifacts, and demigod artifacts. Even more astonishingly, He had a high god spark. That high god spark alone would be enough to allow Linley become a rich man in the infernal realm. However, Linley's group knew that they couldn't reveal how much wealth they had. In the Black Dragon tribe, if others learned that they had high god sparks, most likely they wouldn't live to see the next day. How about this? I still have 4 demigod artifacts on me. I'll go to the chief's castle first and sell off those 4 demigod artifacts. Linley made his decision. Although I'll suffer a bit of a loss, there's no other option. Here in the tribe, a demigod artifact would only sell for 5 inkstones. But if he went to Royal Wing City, he would be able to sell it for 7 inkstones, while the shops of Royal Wing City, in turn, would sell it for 10 inkstones. Demigod artifacts were cheap, not worth much at all. Since he made up his mind, he did it right away. After drinking, Linley's group headed directly for that black castle atop the tall mountain peak. On the walls of this black castle, there were over 10 gods standing guard. They stared down at Linley's group but didn't say anything. The entire Black Dragon tribe only had 20,000 people. Everyone knew each other. Linley, you came. Someone came out from the side door to the castle. It was Buffett. Mr. Buffett, we came to sell a few demigod artifacts. Linley said. Buffett nodded in understanding. Oh, then come with me. As he spoke, Buffett led them forward into the castle through a side door. Within the castle, there was actually another small castle. The inner castle is the place where his lordship lives. The outer castle is where the warriors of the tribe live. Buffett explained. In the future, if you want to sell something, just head in directly from the side door and go to that shop. Generally speaking, members of the tribe can come into the outer city whenever they want. The guards won't stop you. Within the Black Castle, the warriors of the tribe could be seen everywhere. Indeed, all of them are high gods. BB sighed in praise. Linley swept those people with his gaze as well. He knew that these people were all warriors of the Black Dragon tribe. If other tribes were to invade, they would have to rely on these warriors to counterattack and defend. Go on in. Buffett pointed towards the shop in front of them. Linley and the other 2 entered the tribe's shop. Within the shop, there was just a single black-haired middle-aged man seated cross-legged on the floor. When Linley's group entered, the black-haired man opened his eyes, sweeping them with an icy gaze. He said calmly, "What is it?" Linley was startled. Was this the attitude a shopkeeper had towards his customers? They came to sell artifacts. Buffett walked in from outside as well. Oh. Take out the artifacts. The black-haired middle-aged man said. With a flip of his hand, Linley removed 4 demigod artifacts. These 4 demigod artifacts were useless to him anyhow. The black-haired middle-aged man glanced at them, then said calmly, 4 demigod artifacts, all weapons, nothing special. 5 inkstones each, 20 inkstones total. With a flip of his hand, the black-haired man retrieved 2 long inkstones that were 10 centimeters long. Take the inkstones, leave the artifacts. Huh. Linley was somewhat surprised. There were actually long inkstones. However, in terms of size, it did indeed appear that a long inkstone was equivalent to 10 inkstones. Although he was surprised, Linley still placed the 4 divine artifacts down while accepting the 2 long inkstones which the man tossed over. After exchanging for the 20 inkstones, Linley's group continued living quietly within the Black Dragon tribe. Usually, they spent their time training quietly, peacefully awaiting the trip in half a year to Royal Wing City. The mountain ranges of the Black Dragon tribe had a circumference of 1,000 kilometers. Thousands of black dragons could be seen flying about at all times, heading in and out of the mountains. All of the members of the Black Dragon tribe lived quietly here. However, over 1,000 kilometers away from the mountains, a savage black tiger that was the size of a mountain, along with a similarly sized vicious golden wolf, was moving together towards the Black Dragon tribe. Those two astonishingly vast creatures also flew at a shockingly fast speed, creating terrifying sonic booms as they flew. Rumble. 1,000 kilometers was quickly traveled. Halfway up their mountain, in Linley's residence, Linley was seated in the meditative position, quietly training in the throbbing pulse of the world and the essence of the earth, working on fusing these profound mysteries. By now, both his original body as well as his divine earth clone were focusing on the laws of the earth, hoping to be able to reach the level of completely fusing these two profound elemental mysteries more quickly. Enemies attacking. Enemies attacking. An ear-piercing voice echoed throughout the Black Dragon tribe. Even Linley, in the middle of his training, was frightened into wakefulness. What's going on? Delia came out from her room, while BB flew in from outside, clearly very excited. Wow, boss, outside, two enormous aberrations came. Afterwards, I realized that behind those two monsters were a large number of deities, at least thousands of people. Enemies attacking. Linley frowned. They should be enemies of the tribe. Linley began to feel a bit worried. He didn't know anything about the attackers. What he feared was, the enemies defeating the Black Dragon tribe, then engaging in a massacre. That would make things dangerous. This wasn't impossible, after all, divine sparks were a form of wealth. Perhaps the enemy would truly massacre the entire Black Dragon tribe. Let's go out and take a look. Linley immediately said. If the situation looks bad, we will immediately leave. Linley knew the limits of his own ability. Linley and the other two immediately flew out. After flying out of their residence, they discovered that the skies above the mountains were filled with people. Virtually all of the members of the Black Dragon tribe had flown out. Right now, the Black Dragon army had also appeared, facing off with the enemy forces. Linley and the other two flew over, joining the masses. Linley, you came. Linley's neighbor, Crate, greeted them when he saw them flying over. This is the army of our Black Dragon tribe. They seem very formidable. Linley let out a breath of praise. Up ahead of them, there were over 1,000 warriors dressed in the same black battle outfit who were standing together. The murderous aura which 1,000 gods emitted simultaneously was enough to cause Linley's heart to shudder. Crate said proudly, indeed. Look over there, that gold-haired person. That's my big brother. Raschel Leker, I didn't expect that even you would join forces with that vicious wolf. I, Sturton, seem to recollect that I treated you quite well. In the center of the Black Dragon army, a powerful figure at least 2 meters tall roared out loudly. Can it be that you don't know what sort of person this vicious wolf is? If today, you abandon your course, I am willing to gift you 1,000,000 inkstones, what do you say? Linley raised an eyebrow. Chief Sturton. Linley immediately looked over. Sturton was exceedingly powerfully built, and he wore a black robe on his body. He stood in mid-air as though he were a mountain, utterly unshakable. Haha, what a joke. Klotman's Kalau Te Man character is better than yours, at least. In addition, 1,000,000 inkstones. If you were willing to give me half of your Gerard Black Dragons, that wouldn't be bad. In the opposing army, there was a person at least 3 meters tall whose face was covered with whiskers and a face that looked like a tiger's. The tiger-headed man didn't give the chief of the Black Dragon tribe, Sturton, any face at all. The other person, a skinny man dressed in a long golden robe, laughed evilly. Sturton, you've taken sole possession of those thousands of Gerard Black Dragons for so long. Don't you feel you are a bit too black-hearted? If you are willing to divide those thousands of Gerard Black Dragons into 3 parts, allowing the 3 of us to split them equally, then today, the people that I brought will immediately leave, along with Raschel. What do you say? Humph. A cold snort rang out. Sturton swept them with a cold gaze. I acquired these Gerard dragons in the past when I risked my life for them. Why should I give them to you? Linley, in the midst of the other members of the Black Dragon tribe, felt his heart grow cold. It seems the enemy is composed of an alliance of two other tribes. This will be troublesome. Ha ha, the tiger-headed warrior, Raschel, laughed loudly. Clotman, let's not waste any more words with this Sturton. Let's just kill him. We'll split those Gerard black dragons evenly. The skinny, golden-robed man laughed coldly as well. Big brother Raschel, well spoken. Mother of Asterisker. Sturton's face became ferocious. He immediately sent out his divine sense. First Regiment, launch a group spiritual attack. Nearly 800 members of the Black Dragon army suddenly, simultaneously brandished the weapons in their hands. Countless illusory images shot out from their weapons in a dense barrage. Kill! The two leaders of the enemy forces shouted as well, and 1,000 of the 3,000 members of the enemy forces also launched spiritual attacks in a very practiced manner. Large amounts of illusory images instantly clashed throughout the air in between the two armies, either dissipating after clashing into each other, or continuing to shoot towards the enemy forces. Good heavens! If tens of thousands of people used a combination soul attack at the same time, most likely even a high god would be doomed. Linley stared, slack-jawed. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 7. A bloody battle. At a distance of several kilometers, the forces of the Black Dragon tribe and the forces of the two combined enemy armies began to rain down attacks upon each other. A distance of several kilometers, given the speed of soul attacks, was instantly crossed. Linley and the other ordinary members of the Black Dragon tribe could clearly see that in mid-air, a large number of semi-translucent illusions pierced through the sky, attacking the opponents. Boom! A portion of the soul attacks collided in mid-air, but the majority of the soul attacks passed through to attack the opponents. The warriors of the two sides wanted to dodge and avoid these soul attacks. However, the soul attacks covered the entire sky, and so quite a few unlucky god-level warriors were still struck by those soul attacks. Upon being struck, even if they didn't die, their souls would still be affected. Boom! Boom! Corpses of the warriors of the two sides began to fall down from the skies. Send me. Third brother. Those god-level warriors all began to feel grief and rage. This battle fought by armies that are completely composed of gods, Linley and the other members of the tribe were behind the army. Watching this scene, he felt extremely stunned. In an instant, dozens of gods perished. This sort of organized battle is truly terrifying. The nearby BB said quietly, if an army of hundreds of thousands of deities joined forces in an attack, even a high god would be finished. Delia's face changed as well. How could they possibly see a battle like this in the Yulan continent? But in the infernal realm, this was nothing more than a battle between tribes. Linley couldn't help but think back to what he had experienced in the necropolis of the gods. That time, at the 11th floor of the necropolis of the gods, he had encountered 1,000,000 abyssal blade demons. At that time, those millions of abyssal blade demons had dove down while brandishing their blades en masse, resulting in nearly 1,000,000 energy blows raining down upon them. Linley's group had nearly been done for. Whoosh! Suddenly, several rays of soul attacks shot out towards Linley's group. Quick, dodge! Linley immediately shouted through his divine sense. Not just them. Many of the other members of the Black Dragon tribe dodged as well. Many soul attacks, after being deflected by the god-level warriors of one side, actually flew towards Linley's group. These were god-level soul attacks, while the majority of those below the army were demigods. Generally speaking, if they got hit they would most likely die. Let's not stay behind the army. BB's face was sour. It's too easy to get hit by the remnant attacks. Linley took a close glance at the unfolding battle between the tribes. The battle is growing more and more vicious. Physical attacks. Sturton howled angrily. He was utterly enraged that two tribes were joining forces against him. Under Sturton's command, the Black Dragon Army's warriors all began to unleash their physical attacks. The battle was being raised to a new level. Whoosh! Rays of blue sword energy pierced through the sky. Wherever the sword energy passed, space itself began to ripple. The infernal realm was far more stable than the material planes. In the Yulon plane, Linley could easily cut open the walls of reality, but this was the infernal realm. It would be impressive if Linley was able to create even spatial ripples. Gruel! An enormous elemental beast appeared out of nowhere. One enormous beast after another appeared in mid-air, biting and tearing at each other. Boom! A thick blast of lightning slashed through the air, attacking the enemies. Ryip! The warriors of the two sides wildly attacked each other in mid-air. When a god was struck by several material attacks at once, he would be disintegrated. In but a single exchange of blows, dozens of god sparks fell down from mid-air. The situation looks bad. Linley frowned. The Black Dragon army numbers less than 2,000, while the opponent's forces have 3,000. If they kept on fighting head-on like this, the Black Dragon tribe would be at a great disadvantage. Haha, Sturton, today, you will definitely die. The skinny, gold-robed man's shrill voice rang out, while the other, tiger-headed warrior also bellowed, "Brothers, kill them. Kill them all. Spare no one." Sturton's face was savage. "All members of the Black Dragon tribe, annihilate the enemies." Sturton roared furiously. Instantly, the nearly 20,000 members of the Black Dragon tribe that had been located behind the army all simultaneously drew their weapons and released their most powerful attacks. The entire sky was filled with illusory sword shadows, massive elemental beasts, and all sorts of shadows. Over 10,000 attacks instantly filled the skies, attacking the opponents. Kill them. The members of the Black Dragon tribe no longer held back. Linley, Delia, and BB couldn't help but feel astonished. "Linley, quick, help attack." An explosive shout sounded out from nearby, causing Linley to be startled. Turning, Linley saw that Crate, normally so friendly and so fragile looking, now had a savage look on his face. Looking like an enraged lion, he shouted towards Linley's group, "We're at the final stages now. If the army is finished, we are also finished. Those people will exterminate us. Kill them all, kill them." BB was the first to react. He immediately howled loudly, "Kill." At the same time, that black dagger appeared in his hands and created rays of black light which shot towards the opponents. This black dagger was the dagger which Beirut had given him. Everyone had gone mad. They were struggling for survival. Kill. Linley and Delia withdrew their weapons as well. Not caring about picking out a specific enemy, they swung their weapons towards the direction of their enemies. Linley was wielding his adamantine heavy sword. Dozens of enormous earthen swords appeared and swung outwards. Although superficially, these enormous earthen swords looked like physical elemental attacks, in reality, they had been infused with the throbbing pulse of the world. "Charge over there and kill those Black Dragon tribesmen." The enemy leader, that tiger-headed warrior, bellowed out. "Charge over and kill them." Sturton howled as well. Previously, everyone had been exchanging long-range blows. By now, however, everyone had lost friends or family, and their eyes had become red with bloodlust. The two sides instantly traversed the distance between them, engaging in a slaughter in mid-air. Hundreds of full gods directly charged towards the group of demigods. There was a large difference between demigods and gods, especially now when hundreds of gods were charging over. What is Sturton doing? Linley was extremely unhappy. The Black Dragon tribe's warriors clearly are inferior to the opponents in strength, and yet he still ignores everything else in favor of battle. By now, he should strike out by himself and destroy the enemy commanders. This is the only option. When your forces were inferior to your opponent's forces, the fastest way to achieve victory was to kill the leaders of your opponents. However, Linley wasn't certain. Linley had no way of knowing what Sturton was thinking. Next to Linley, Crate suddenly stared at a large, tall figure who was falling from mid-air. His eyes instantly turned red, and he let out a fierce cry, "Big brother!" His big brother had taken care of him when they were in the material planes, and had continued to do so up to this very day. But today, his big brother had died. Kill! Crate lost himself in rage. His eyes completely red, he wanted to charge towards the enemies. Crate! Linley shouted explosively at him through divine sense, and this sound caused him to wake up slightly. Quick, retreat, go back. If you die here, there's no point to it at all. Linley said frantically. At this point, the armies were engaged in wide-scale warfare. Linley wasn't able to do anything right now. All he could do was try to protect their lives as best as possible. In addition, Linley's group was located towards the rear. The enemy's gods had yet to reach their position yet. Ha ha, a loud laugh rang out from nearby. Only a few dozen meters away from Linley, 6 demigods of the Black Dragon tribe suddenly exploded, and their 6 demigod sparks were seized by 3 hands. It was 3 enemy god warriors, who had instantly killed those 6 demigods. Clearly, they had now noticed Linley's group. There's gods here who were too cowardly to join the army. One of them, a savage-faced, bald man, shouted wildly. Brothers, kill them all. Kill them all. The enemy side had 3 god-level warriors. Like starving wolves, they charged towards Linley's group. The eyes of those god-level warriors were flashing with red light, a bloodthirsty look in them. Delia, protect yourself. Linley shouted with his divine sense. You are looking for death. BB shouted explosively. He was the first to charge the attackers. Humph. The sinister bald man charged towards Linley. Clearly, he had noticed that Linley was just a demigod. Die, punk. The spear in the bald man's hands, covered with yellow dots, pierced straight towards Linley. With a flip of his hand, Linley thrust out with his adamantine heavy sword. The yellow-mottled spear clashed with the adamantine heavy sword. During that instant, Linley's adamantine heavy sword suddenly swayed strangely, not blocking the attack of that spear, allowing it to pierce towards himself. Huh! The bald man stared, astonished. Clang! In Linley's left hand, blood violet suddenly appeared, and it blocked the tip of that mottled yellow spear. Humph! The bald man sneered, punk, you have no idea at all that my ultimate attack is a soul attack. An illusory spear shadow pierced straight into Linley's body, charging towards Linley's consciousness. However, as the bald man executed his ultimate attack, Linley's adamantine heavy sword landed on the bald man's body as well. So what if you are skilled at soul attacks? A demigod is far too weak to do anything. The bald man wasn't worried. But suddenly, his face changed dramatically as Linley's Voidwave sword easily pierced through his soul defense. The bald man couldn't help but stare in Linley at astonishment. Ah, you, but instantly, his eyes turned dim. The power of my Voidwave sword is already 3 times that of 20 or so years ago. Linley's gaze was cold and remorseless. When he had been at Mount Copper Gong, Linley had just begun to fuse the throbbing pulse of the world with the essence of the earth, resulting in its power increasing by several times. Now that 20 years had passed, the essence of the earth had already become more than halfway fused with the throbbing pulse of the world. At this level of being more than halfway fused, the Voidwave sword was now at a level of power that was 3 times that of the past. How could this bald man possibly block it? And as for the bald man's attack, anyone who specialized in soul attacks would be in for a world of trouble upon meeting Linley. Delia, Linley hurriedly turned to look. He saw 8 Delias in mid-air, while the god who wanted to pursue and kill Delia was moving very slowly. Bibi suddenly charged right in front of him. Die! Bibi looked like a delicate, fragile youth, but right now, he was completely merciless. Crunch! The black dagger pierced through that god's head. Ah! Even up till now, that god stared at Delia, unwilling to accept this outcome. He had never imagined that Delia, a god, had actually gained insights into the most bizarre profound mystery of the elemental laws of the wind, the spatial wind. The 3 gods had died. At this time, Linley collected the divine artifact, divine spark, and interspatial ring of the bald man. Whew! The 8 Delias transformed back into one, then flew over, laughing towards Linley. Linley, what do you think of my teamwork with Bibi? Bibi said in surprised joy as well, boss, that technique of Delia's just now was very powerful. Those 2 gods were both affected by it, and their speed lowered dramatically, as though their hands and feet were tied. I seized the opportunity to kill both of them. It was simply too easy. Linley stared at Delia in astonishment. Linley, didn't I tell you in the past? That year when we wed, I absorbed that demigod-level wind-style divine spark which had profound mysteries that were similar to the void extermination spell, right? This is known as the profound mysteries of the spatial wind. Delia explained. Linley nodded. I've discovered that those 3 profound mysteries contained within that Nyaf's divine spark aren't as useful as that single profound mystery. Delia sighed. Linley let out a relieved breath as well. The elemental laws of wind did indeed have to do with space and dimensions. This profound mysteries of the spatial wind should be a very powerful type of profound mystery. Most likely, Lord Beirut had spent quite some effort in selecting this divine spark for her. Linley felt gratitude in his heart. Turning to look, he saw that the battle around them was extremely bloody, and many people in the tribe had died. Linley suddenly had a surge of emotion. This sort of battle between tribes was a microcosm of the infernal realm as a whole. Even life in a tribe was so dangerous, what about the entire infernal realm then? We have to survive here in the infernal realm. Linley looked at Delia and Bibi as he murmured to himself. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 8. Survival of the Fittest. Sturton stood there in mid-air. Although the battle around him was fierce, he was like a rock amidst the waves. Nobody was able to budge him at all. Sturton watched everything coldly. The warriors and members of the tribe died, but he didn't care at all. It is about time. Sturton muttered softly. Let's do it. A hoarse voice suddenly rang out. 3 people suddenly charged out from within those black uniformed warriors of the Black Dragon army. These 3 black-robed figures moved almost at the same time that Sturton did, charging towards the 2 enemy leaders. The tiger-headed warrior and the skinny, gold-robed man both laughed. Sturton really did have something up his sleeve. Only, I didn't expect he'd actually have 3 of them. The gold-robed man, Klotman, said in a low voice. Fortunately, we made preparations as well. The tiger-headed man said coldly. The gold-robed Klotman narrowed his eyes, a freezing aura shooting forth from them. With a low growl, he said, "Kill." As his voice rang out, 2 grey-robed men suddenly charged out from within their troops. These 2 grey-robed men and the 2 leaders simultaneously charged towards their enemies. The 3 black-robed men and Sturton. The 2 grey-robed men, Klotman and Raschel. 4 on 4. You invited fiends as well. Sturton said in a cold voice. You really are rich. You invited 3. Clayton let out a sneering laugh. The 2 sides immediately dispensed with words. 4 on each side. 8 in total. These 8 people were all high gods, and high gods who had become deities through their own power. Every single one of them had their own special abilities, and they began to wildly fight against each other. Boom! Space itself shook, and terrifying waves of energy blasted out in every direction. What? Many people stared over in astonishment. Fighting one-on-one, the four pairs of people fought wildly in mid-air, causing those terrifying spatial tremors to spread out in every direction constantly. One's body transformed into nothingness. Another's transformed into an enormous elemental beast. Still another transformed into the shape of a sword. A battle between high gods was exceedingly vicious. The four pairs of combatants fought against each other, and no one dared to draw near. Even those god-level warriors of the two sides which had been fighting all out against each other earlier now came to a halt as if by mutual agreement, and the fierceness of the battle dropped dramatically. Everyone really is pragmatic. Linley watched this scene unfold. Just now, the leaders of both sides had only been watching as those warriors fought against each other. But now that the leaders of the two sides were fighting, the warriors came to a halt as though by taciturn understanding. Delia laughed calmly, "It's normal. Nobody wants to die. Right now, the leaders are fighting each other. Whichever side's leader survives will be the side which obtains victory. To these warriors, it doesn't make much of a difference as to who their leader is." Linley watched those four pairs of high gods battle it out in mid-air. He had to admit that the power of a high god vastly outstripped that of a god. At the very least, a high god has mastered every single profound mystery in an elemental law. Linley sighed to himself. Only, there's differences in the level of fusion. Weak high gods might not have fused any profound mysteries at all. Stronger high gods, by contrast, might have fused two profound mysteries, or three or more for the powerful ones. Two died. Linley raised his head, watching the battle as he spoke softly. The 8 high gods that had been battling each other had already suffered 2 casualties. It was the golden-robed Clotman and a black-robed man. Just then, during the 4-on-4 battle, the golden-robed Clotman had been fighting against that black-robed man. Clotman, suffering a severe injury in turn, managed to kill the black-robed man. But just at that moment, Sturton suddenly transformed into 2 clones and attacked, killing the heavily wounded Clotman. Although Clotman also had a clone of his own, his clone was only a god. It was destroyed as well. Sturton. The tiger-headed warrior's face changed. "I didn't expect that your wind-style clone has reached the high god level as well." "Humph." Sturton sneered. "First, Clotman. Next, you. To people like them, they usually wouldn't choose to utilize fusing divine sparks. They would only become deities through training." "Is that so?" A cold look flashed through the eyes of the tiger-headed man. Suddenly, a figure flew out of his own as well. This figure pounced towards his opponent, another black-robed man. This essentially meant that the tiger-headed warrior and that shadowy figure were joining forces against their opponent. A high god clone. The black-robed man was frightened into an immediate retreat. Sturton's face changed. Looking at the tiger-headed warrior, he said, "Raschel, you hit it really well." "Not as well as you." The shadow solidified. It was the darkness-type clone of the tiger-headed warrior, Raschel. Watching in the distance, Linley had to sigh in amazement. That seemingly rash and foolish tiger-headed warrior, Raschel, isn't one whit less sinister than Sturton. Linley now understood that perhaps Sturton and Raschel had some secret, ulterior motives for allowing their subordinates to do battle against each other. Right at this moment. "Lord Bertie Baudieu, how much longer are you planning to wait?" Sturton sent a message with his divine sense. Suddenly, in mid-air, a black light solidified, transforming into a silver-haired, silver-robed elder. This silver-robed elder was wielding a long black whip in his hands, and he charged leisurely towards the tiger-headed warrior and those 2 grey-robed men. Whoosh! The long whip danced out, causing space to distort. One of the grey-robed men let out a cold sneer. The spear in his hands lengthened, and wherever it passed, black flames appeared out of nowhere. The long whip and the long spear collided. Humph! The silver-robed elder sneered. Ah! The grey-robed man's entire body began to convulse. He let out a few agonized cries, and then he stopped moving, falling down from the skies. This scene terrified many of the onlookers. Everyone had witnessed the power of that grey-robed man. He definitely was a fairly powerful high god. But in front of that silver-robed elder, he had been defeated within a single exchange. It is Bertie of Castle Greensnake. The face of the tiger-headed warrior, Raschel, changed dramatically. He glanced disbelievingly at Sturton. Sturton, you, he didn't imagine that the chief of the Black Dragon tribe, Sturton, would actually ask for help from Castle Greensnake. Bertie. The other lucky survivor, the grey-robed man, was greatly shocked. Bertie's fame was fairly well known throughout the Nightblaze prefecture, and he was a fairly powerful expert. At the very least, he wasn't someone whom the likes of them could stand against. Flee. Without hesitating at all, the tiger-headed warrior and the grey-robed man transformed into multiple shadows, fleeing at high speed. If a powerful high god wished to flee, other high gods generally wouldn't be able to kill them. Humph! The silver-robed elder sneered, then glanced sideways at Sturton. Sturton immediately revealed a smile on his face. You handle affairs here. I'm going back now, Bertie said, and then he exploded, transforming into a large amount of black light which then disappeared. Sturton looked at the surrounding, astonished people. In a bright voice, he said, warriors of the Golden Wolf tribe and the Snow Tiger tribe, you now have the choice of joining our Black Dragon tribe. But of course, you can resist as well. If you choose resistance, Sturton let out a cold laugh. The warriors of the two tribes looked at each other. Now that Clotman was dead, the Golden Wolf tribe was finished. The Snow Tiger tribe's power had dropped greatly as well. Now of course, your family and friends can join our Black Dragon tribe as well. Sturton laughed brightly. Our Black Dragon tribe will definitely bring you more wealth and security than you previously had. If you agree to join our tribe, then sheath your weapons. Those god-level warriors looked at each other. Some of the gods of the Golden Wolf tribe sheathed their weapons. Their leader was dead. Naturally, they had to surrender. After all, without the protection of a tribe, their lives would be very difficult. After the first few people began to surrender, the others began to surrender and choose to join the Black Dragon tribe as well. To them, the identity of their leader didn't make much of a difference. He was the one that killed my big brother. Crate growled softly as he stared at a distant person. Those surrendered warriors had some enmities now with many of the survivors of the Black Dragon tribe. Only Sturton's presence in the Black Dragon tribe was too intimidating, so no one dared to say anything. But one could imagine that in the future, the Black Dragon tribe would have quite a few internal struggles. Humph! Sturton glanced out of the corner of his eyes, seeing the hatred in some of the eyes of his tribesmen. He just let out a soft laugh. He didn't care about the deaths of a few tribesmen. This was the infernal realm. Survival of the fittest was the natural law of this place. In the blink of an eye, nearly half a year passed. The battle of half a year ago had actually caused the population of the Black Dragon tribe to increase greatly. In particular, a majority of the Golden Wolf tribe's tribesmen had joined in. The Black Dragon tribe's population reached nearly 30,000. In particular, the number of god-level warriors had increased to nearly 3,000. Sturton had wanted to annihilate the Snow Tiger tribe, but afterwards, he discovered that the Snow Tiger tribe had already moved away from their original location. Clearly, the tiger-headed leader, Raschal, had predicted long ago that Sturton would come for revenge. Knowing he wouldn't be able to resist, he had immediately led his people elsewhere. At Linley's residence. Crate, if you want revenge now, your only choice is to endure. Your current power is far inferior to your enemy's. Right now, he doesn't know that you are his enemy. You can calmly train. There will come the day when you will have a chance to take revenge. Linley advised. This entire time, Crate had wanted to get revenge for his big brother. But his enemy was a god, after all. Crate's power was far inferior to his opponent's. I know, Linley. Crate's face was sunken, but he nodded. Boom. A vibration came from outside. Linley mused, it seems there's a battle outside again. The nearby Delia sighed as well and said, thousands of members of the Black Dragon tribe died half a year ago during that battle. Many of their family and friends are still alive. Of course they want revenge. Fortunately, that battle was so chaotic that the vast majority don't know who the killers of their loved ones were. Otherwise, the tribe would be in a state of chaos. Linley nodded in agreement. Who cares if it is in chaos or not? Bibi laughed coldly. As long as they don't cause trouble for us. If they do, we'll kill any who come. Crate, if you don't mind, I can help you get revenge. Bibi said quite magnanimously. No need. Crate's gaze was cold. There will come a day when I personally get revenge. Linley, Bibi, I won't disturb you any further. I'm going back now. After this experience, Crate was no longer as cheerful as he had been in the past. Soon after Crate's departure, someone else came. It was a familiar figure, Buffett. Linley, didn't you want to go to Royal Wing City? Tomorrow, our Black Dragon tribe will send a group of people on a metallic creature to head out. If you want to go, each of you needs to prepare 5 inkstones. Buffett reminded them with a laugh. Truly. Bibi was the first to stand up. Linley and Delia were greatly overjoyed as well. They had already waited quite a long while for this day. Mr. Buffett, thank you so much, truly. Linley felt great gratitude in his heart. He would finally be able to leave the Black Dragon tribe. Buffett let out a long sigh, then laughed. Linley, actually, when last time you refused to join the army, I knew that you didn't want to stay at the Black Dragon tribe. Actually, leaving is fine. Buffett instructed, but Linley, Royal Wing City isn't a place where just anyone can stay. You need to make some preparations. Right. I understand. Linley's mood was excellent right now. Early next dawn, Linley, Delia, and Bibi first went to bid farewell to some of the friends they had made in the Black Dragon tribe. Crate, no matter what, don't be hasty. Linley instructed. Linley, the infernal realm is vast and boundless. Royal Wing City is one of the 10 cities of the Nightblaze Prefecture. The Black Dragon tribe is just a small place. That place is a large city. You have to work hard to stabilize your footing in Royal Wing City. That won't be an easy task. Crate actually encouraged Linley rather than vice versa. Linley chuckled. Don't worry. A small affair like this can't possibly stop me. Bibi rubbed his nose, laughing delightedly. The metallic creature has come. Delia suddenly spoke. Raising his head, Linley saw that in the air above Sturton's black castle, a metallic creature was there, having transformed into a black dragon while hovering in mid-air. A number of people, spread throughout the Black Dragon tribe, began to fly towards it. Linley, Delia, and Bibi bid farewell to their friends. Then flew towards the metallic creature as well. Farewell, Black Dragon tribe. Linley lowered his head, looking down at the slowly disappearing Black Dragon tribe and its mountains. This was the first place where Linley had settled down in upon arriving at the infernal realm. In the future, he would most likely never return to this place again. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 9, Omnipresent Danger. The metallic creature that had transformed into an enormous black dragon coiled in the air midway up the mountain. All of the members of the Black Dragon who wished to head to Royal Wing City all flew over, while a young, muscular man stood at the flank of the metallic creature, opening the doorway. All of you, come. Everyone who wishes to go to Royal Wing City, 5 inkstones each. The young, muscular warrior called out loudly in a disdainful manner. Those who wanted to go Royal Wing City numbered over 100. Linley's group naturally was amongst them. 5 inkstones each. The 3 of them needed to pay 15 inkstones. Originally, when selling off those 4 demigod artifacts, they had acquired 20 inkstones. More than half was now being used up, just like that. It really is expensive. BB muttered in a low voice. Didn't you hear what Buffett said? Linley said softly. This metallic creature is reserved for the members of the tribe only, and only members of the tribe are qualified to pay 5 inkstones for passage in a group. The members of other tribes aren't even qualified to enter this metallic creature. As they spoke, it now came to Linley's turn. 3 of us. Linley indicated, then withdrew 2 of the long inkstones, each one equivalent to 10 inkstones. The muscular young man accepted them, then gave Linley 5 smaller inkstones. Impatiently, he said, "Hurry up." Next. Linley's group immediately entered the metallic creature's interior. The inside of the metallic creature was extremely large. It was separated into a forward cabin and a rear cabin. Those who paid 5 inkstones like Linley's group were all placed in the rear cabin, which had a large number of seats automatically created by the metallic creature itself. The seats were created in rows of 4 each. Linley's group of 3 naturally selected the same row. "I want the window." BB immediately sat on the inside, which allowed him to see through the metallic creature's translucent sides towards the outside. Delia sat next to Linley on the outside. "Finally, we're leaving the Black Dragon tribe." Linley and Delia exchanged a laugh, their hands coming together. As one tribesman after another entered, the spaces in the rear cabin began to fill up. A tousled, jade-haired youngster laughed as he greeted Linley, then sat down next to him. "Hi there. My name is Deborah Dibola." The jade-haired youth said in a very friendly manner towards Linley, seated next to him. "I am Linley." Linley nodded in a friendly manner. In the infernal realm, one's status was primarily determined by one's power. This Deborah was only a demigod. Deborah had the sense that the woman, Delia, and the youngster, BB, had auras that caused him to feel fear. He felt that Linley, however, should be a demigod. "Linley, why are you headed to Royal Wing City?" Deborah asked curiously. "Me? This is my first time in the infernal realm. I want to take a look in Royal Wing City. I've never gone there before." "You?" Linley asked with a calm laugh. Deborah lowered his voice. "I want to sell a divine artifact, but selling it in the tribe is too disadvantageous. Thus I decided to go sell it at Royal Wing City. This was my good fortune. Half a year ago, during that big battle, I was lucky enough to snatch up a god artifact. During that battle, many gods had fallen. At that time, Linley and the other 2 had killed 3 gods, then seized their divine artifacts, sparks, and interspatial rings. During battles, tribesmen who acquired any ordinary items didn't need to offer it to the chief, the items went to whoever acquired them. This was the rule of the tribe. Your luck really isn't bad." Linley laughed calmly and said a few words of praise. Rumble. The metallic creature moved, and a wild surge of energy was released as it instantly transformed into a blur, disappearing from the air above the mountain and departing from the Black Dragon tribe. "It's begun." Linley murmured to himself. "From here to Royal Wing City will take half a month or so. This half a month will be very boring." The jade-haired youth next to Linley, Deborah, said in a somewhat resigned manner. "Half a month." Linley had a thought. He remembered back to what Crate had said, the city closest to the Black Dragon tribe, Royal Wing City, was over 10 million kilometers away from Black Dragon tribe. Since they would arrive in half a month, that meant that this metallic creature was capable of moving roughly 1 million kilometers a day. "Pipe down." Suddenly, an icy shout rang out from up front. Linley and the others turned to look, and saw that at the corridor between the rear cabin and the front cabin, a golden-haired elder entered the rear cabin, followed by several gods. Lord Edmund Aidameng has come as well. The jade-haired Deborah said softly in surprise. Who is Edmund? Linley lowered his voice as well. Deborah explained, Lord Edmund is the chief steward for Lord Chief Sturton. I didn't expect that Lord Edmund is going on this trip to Royal Wing City as well. For even Lord Edmund to be sent, it seems there is a major deal to be made this time in Royal Wing City. Deborah's understanding of the Black Dragon tribe was far greater than Linley's. Linley looked in surprise towards the distant Edmund as well. Chief Steward? This Edmund should be a high god. Bibi's voice rang out in Linley's mind. Linley nodded to himself as well. Edmund's gaze was cold and clear as he looked at everyone in the rear cabin. In a calm voice, he barked, Is there anyone here who is going to Royal Wing City for the first time? If this is your first time, stand up. Immediately, 2 people in the rear cabin stood up. Linley, Delia, and Bibi glanced at each other, then stood up as well. Edmund swept them with his gaze, nodding calmly. 5 in total. And then, he walked towards Linley's group, which was closer. Walking next to them, he saw Deborah and then chuckled, Deborah, you are going as well, young fellow? Go ahead and tell them some of the necessary information they need to be aware of in Royal Wing City. If they cause a disaster, they will die, but more importantly, I don't want the 3 of them to cause any problems for the tribe. Yes, milord. Don't worry. I will definitely tell them everything they need to be aware of. The jade-haired youth, Deborah, said hurriedly. Edmund nodded calmly. If there are any problems, I'll come looking for you. The 3 of you, sit down. After speaking, Edmund walked towards the back. Similarly ordering the people next to the other 2 newcomers to tell them what they needed to be aware of. After finishing speaking, Edmund led his people out of the rear cabin and returned to the front cabin. The front cabin was where the forces who directly served Chief Sturton stayed. What do I need to be aware of when heading to Royal Wing City? Linley looked at Deborah. Deborah laughed and nodded. There are indeed a few things. First of all, when you enter any city in the infernal realm, you have to pay the city entrance fee. The entrance fee is 1 inkstone per person. So greedy. Linley said to himself. Deborah continued, after entering the city, it is best for you to follow with the tribe's people and not run about rashly. This is because after finishing up, everyone is going to immediately leave Royal Wing City on that very same day and return back to the tribe. Return on the same day. Linley was somewhat surprised. But as Linley saw it, this didn't matter much to him, as he didn't have any plans to return to the Black Dragon tribe at all. Right. Return on the same day. This is because Royal Wing City, actually, not just Royal Wing City, but every city in the infernal realm, has a night curfew. From midnight until 5 in the morning, nobody is permitted to be on the streets or alleyways of the city. If you are caught, if you are a citizen of Royal Wing City, it isn't as severe, after some punishment, you'll be released. But if you aren't a citizen of Royal Wing City, then, you will never be able to return to the Black Dragon tribe. Deborah said solemnly. Linley was startled. Are you saying that if you are caught at night, you are finished? Linley stared at Deborah in astonishment. Deborah nodded solemnly. Thus, we usually return to the Black Dragon tribe that same day. We definitely won't stay the night at Royal Wing City. This is because staying a single time at some of the hotels in Royal Wing City will cost more than 100 inkstones. Who is willing to pay that sort of price? Over 100 inkstones. The nearby BB turned his head. Right. Deborah nodded with certainty. Linley's group was astonished. The cost of living in Royal Wing City was simply too terrifying. No wonder, Crate had once said that it was very hard for a person to establish himself in Royal Wing City. Black Dragon, hurry up and come to a halt. When passing through our Mount Peter Ter, you need to leave behind some valuables. A loud, clear voice rang out, shaking through the entire metallic creature. Both the passengers in the front and rear cabins were astonished. Everyone understood. Not good. They had encountered bandits. We just headed out a short while ago, and we already encountered bandits. Linley was surprised. It must be understood that Royal Wing City was nearly half a month away from them. According to this sort of frequency, how many bandits would they encounter on the way? Linley looked at Delia and Bibi, saying to himself, no wonder that Buffett had previously said that if the three of us roamed the infernal realm by ourselves, we wouldn't survive more than a day or two. There are simply too many bandit groups in the infernal realm. Linley and the other two peered through the translucent glass and saw a large group of people hovering in mid-air, their leader dressed in a deep blue robe, his blue hair unbound, and with a single horn in his forehead. A single horn. Linley understood that many other races had different aesthetic standards than humans. Even in human form, they would keep some traces of what they themselves considered most beautiful, such as a horn. This was most likely the case for this bandit leader. There were 70 or 80 people here. They had summoned an enormous elemental beast to block this metallic creature. The jade-haired youth Deborah, by Linley's side, laughed. Don't worry, Linley. There won't be any problems. Humph. When did you take over Mount Peter? Can it be that you don't even recognize our Black Dragon tribe? The voice of the chief steward, Edmund, rang out. At the same time, Edmund and those two black-robed men flew out of the metallic creature as well. Linley saw those two black-robed people through the translucent glass. He was immediately surprised. These are the two black-robed men who helped Lord Sturton in that battle half a year ago. At that time, there were a total of 3 black-robed men. One of them had died. These two were the ones who had survived. In the air above Mount Peter, the metallic lifeform had come to a halt. When the nearly 80 or so deities saw those 3 people come out, they were all terrified. They couldn't sense the power level of these 3 people. Clearly, all 3 of them were high gods. Those 2 black-robed men in particular, even had a fiend medallion on their chest. Fiends. Those bandits were terrified. They had run into a brick wall. 3 high gods, 2 of which were fiends. More than enough to wipe them all out. Milords, my truest apologies. We made a mistake. The horned man said in terror. Hump bastard. Disappear from my sight. Edmund shouted coldly. Yes, yes. The horned man was overjoyed. Not hesitating at all, he led his subordinates back downwards, instantly disappearing into the depths of Mount Peter below. This scene caused Linley to sigh to himself that these bandits truly were weak. However, that was only in comparison to high gods. If Linley and the other 2 had encountered these bandits, then it would be very problematic. After all, the enemy had an entire group of deities, including 34 gods. The metallic creature continued forward. The infernal realm really is dangerous. Linley sighed. Right. All we can do is follow the forces of the tribe. That's the only chance we have of entering Royal Wing City. Deborah sighed as well. But Linley, the infernal realm does have some safe zones with no danger, where no one dares to fight. In those places, you can live a very safe life. Oh. Linley was greatly shocked. During this period of time in the infernal realm, all he had seen was vicious battles. The feeling the infernal realm had given him was that any place was ripe for battle and for plunder, with danger everywhere. But from Deborah's words, it seemed there were some safe zones after all. Right. In the infernal realm, every single prefecture has around 10 cities. The cities are safe. Deborah said solemnly. Linley, this is something I have to warn you about. You absolutely cannot fight or kill within the borders of Royal Wing City. If you are captured, then in the future, the repercussions will be even worse than if you are caught violating curfew. Not only will you be finished, our entire tribe will most likely face trouble. Not allowed to engage in battle. Linley actually felt relieved. Since that was the case, then nobody else would act against them in Royal Wing City either. It seemed. Royal Wing City truly was a safe haven. Sadly, the entire Nightblaze prefecture has a circumference of 1 billion kilometers, but each of the 10 cities only has a circumference of roughly 1,000 kilometers. They are too small. Living in Royal Wing City is far too expensive as well. Deborah shook his head, letting out a sigh. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 10, The Three Castles of Royal Wing City. Hearing these two numbers, Linley ran some mental calculations. His heart couldn't help but tremble. A circumference of 1 billion kilometers meant that in size, it was over 1 trillion times the size of an area with a circumference of 1,000 kilometers. Even the 10 cities combined, in terms of size, were just 100 billionth of the total size of the Nightblaze prefecture. 100 billionth. This contrast was simply too shocking. Only the elites of the infernal realm should be able to establish themselves in Royal Wing City. Linley said to himself. The jade-haired youth, Deborah, sighed. If in my lifetime, I am able to become a citizen of Royal Wing City, I would feel contentment. Unfortunately, it is too hard. Deborah didn't have enough confidence in himself. To become a citizen of a city in the infernal realm was something that was worthy of being proud over. Linley had just entered the infernal realm. Although he could sense some things from the 1 in a trillion number, he hadn't lived here long enough, so his feelings weren't as strong. Upon departing the Black Dragon tribe, the number of bandit attacks they had encountered actually wasn't that high. This was because all of the bandit forces that had been established in this area for some time knew about the local tribes, and they knew what the metallic creature serving the Black Dragon tribe usually transformed into. Despite that, however, they still encountered some bandits who wanted to stop them. The chief steward, Edmund, and those two fiends couldn't be bothered to lower themselves to deal with those bandits. All they did was show their faces to frighten them. The 16th day after they departed from the Black Dragon tribe, the people in the rear cabin of the metallic creature grew excited. Through the translucent metal, they were able to see an enormous city formed from giant slabs of violet stones. The Violet City was a city which emanated an ancient, noble aura. Royal Wing City. One of the 10 great cities of the Nightblaze prefecture. This is Royal Wing City. Bibi's eyes were shining. Linley and Delia both excitedly looked at the enormous city as well, a city with circumference of 1,000 kilometers. This was something which did not exist in the Yulan continent. In particular, the stones which the cities of the infernal realm were made out of shared the same hardness as adamantine. We finally arrived. Linley murmured to himself. And then, the many people within the metallic creature flew out. The people of the Black Dragon tribe gathered together in mid-air, and the chief steward, Edmund, swept everyone with his gaze while saying loudly, "Everyone, remember, our tribe's metallic creature will return to the Black Dragon tribe after the blood sun lowers and the violet moon rises. As for our gathering spot, it will be right here. If there is anyone who is missing by the time we leave, we won't wait for you." Everyone understood this principle. All right. Everyone. Prepare to pay the city entrance fee. Edmund spoke, then led the group flying towards the gates of Royal Wing City. Linley, Delia, and Bibi were seeing a city of the infernal realm for the first time. They felt it was very new and interesting. While following the tribesmen in flying over, they also stared at the ancient, majestic, violet stone city. So many people. Bibi exhaled in amazement as he stared around himself. There were too many people who wanted to enter the city. They came from every direction, and had formed a long queue outside the city. Nobody dared to rashly charge in at this place. Even the chief steward, Edmund, lined up in an ordinarily fashion, waiting to pay the entrance fee. Huh. Bibi suddenly stared in shock at the city gates. Those two black-robed men entered without paying the fee. Fiends. Linley discovered this as well. The two fiends who had traveled alongside them didn't line up to pay the entrance fee. They headed directly into Royal Wing City, and the guards at the gates of Royal Wing City didn't stop them either. Redbud Army soldiers, the Prefecture Army soldiers, and fiends. These three types of people don't need to pay any fees when entering the city. The jade-haired youth, Deborah, explained from behind Linley. They all have some special privileges. Thus, there are many people who want to join the Redbud Army, become fiends, or become Prefecture Army soldiers. Unfortunately, the Redbud Army, the Fiends, and the Prefectural Army all have extremely strict entrance requirements. Soon, it was Linley's group's turn. Each of them paid an inkstone, and then Linley's group entered Royal Wing City. During that battle half a year ago, Linley had killed 3 gods, who each had nearly 1,000 inkstones within their interspatial ring, as well as some other items. However, there was something which Linley didn't recognize. It was an azurish stone. It was roughly the same in form as inkstone. However, the special aura it contained within it was far stronger than an inkstone's. Linley was guessing that this azure stone, which was the size as inkstone, should also be some sort of currency. Only, this was just a guess. Linley wasn't in a hurry to ask anyone else. After all, those 3 interspatial rings of those 3 gods, all combined, only had a few dozen of those azurish stones. Royal Wing City. Deborah and Linley's group of 3 walked into Royal Wing City together. While walking on the wide streets, they stared at the surrounding, large structures. Those buildings all emanated a luxurious, ancient aura. Every single structure was built in a way that they could almost be described as sculptures. Although they aren't at the Grand Master level, they aren't too far off either. Linley naturally was qualified to make this judgment. Given his increasingly deeper insights into the elemental laws, the straight chisel schools, Linley could be considered to have reached true mastery in sculpting. These sculptures are so strange. They are so pleasing to the eye. Bibi's eyes lit up. Of course. Linley sighed. I didn't expect that the sculpting of these giant structures would have been done in such a careful, detailed manner. These buildings must be extremely valuable. Deborah snickered. Humph, valuable. Extremely, extremely expensive. A single inch of land in Royal Wing City is extremely expensive. The price of these structures is naturally even more astonishing. When building them, they invited a number of specialized deity-level experts to construct them. The price of every single structure, I can't imagine how many years it would take for me to have enough inkstones to buy one. Linley glanced at the look in the nearby Deborah's eyes. Linley understood that the terrifying price of these structures had already exceeded the limits of Deborah's imagination. He didn't even dare to think about that price. All he could do was say a few grumbling words. As they continued forward, Linley began to get an understanding of how bustling Royal Wing City was. Royal Wing City has existed for countless billions of years. Deborah explained towards Linley. Although these buildings aren't damaged, I think you have probably sensed that ancient aura coming from them, as well as a few of the small cracks and signs of the passage of many years. Linley nodded slightly. Indeed, he could sense it. The number of years which Royal Wing City had existed for was definitely an astonishing figure. Perhaps only the mineral ores of the infernal realm can allow a city to last for so long. Linley said to himself. The ores that were used to build the city were originally meant to be used to forge weapons. Naturally, they could last nearly forever. However, divine artifacts, especially newly made ones, were very cheap in the infernal realm. There are clothing stores here as well. Delia's eyes lit up. She saw a beautiful, extravagant storefront that was completely made from cream white stones. Linley turned to look as well. He saw that this store was completely carved out from a single giant milk-white stone. Given the toughness of the stones of the infernal realm, one could imagine how costly a building such as this must be. What beautiful clothes! Delia looked through the translucent glass and saw some clothes. She couldn't help but grow interested. Women always had a special fondness for clothes. Deborah chuckled, the costs and expenditures here in Royal Wing City are quite terrifyingly high. Ordinary deities like us who live in tribes are completely unable to afford them. For example, those clothes over there. Deborah pointed at a violet set of clothes that was on display. It is very possible that the materials used to make this set of clothes came from other continents, such as the Blood Ridge continent. It might even have come from the Life Realm, or the Netherworld, or perhaps the Celestial Realm. Deborah sighed. Linley, hearing this, stared, slack-jawed. A single set of clothes might have materials coming from other planes. Based on the value of the materials, ordinary clothes are at least 100 inkstones, while those made from slightly more valuable materials might cost 1,000 inkstones. If those materials came from other planes which are extremely rare and precious, a set of clothes could cost millions of inkstones. Delia was shocked as well. Linley's heart shuddered. How could this be described as clothes? A set of clothes was comparable in value to a high god spark. This indeed wasn't something which ordinary people were able to afford. But of course, these clothes will have some special effects as well. For example, in terms of defensiveness, they are definitely comparable to most divine artifacts. Deborah then added with a laugh, but of course, I've only heard others speak of clothes that cost millions of inkstones. I've never personally seen any. Everyone who entered the city had roughly the same goals, buying and selling items. After all, could it be that the members of the poor tribes had come for the purpose of spending money on services here in Royal Wing City? They didn't have the capital. Continuing to move forward, Linley's group was introduced by Deborah to all sorts of entertainment venues in the infernal realm. For example, wine. To make fine wine, one might invite some wine masters who had analyzed wine for hundreds of millions of years, who would use some special methods to create wine using some extremely valuable materials, some of which might only be acquired in dangerous locations. Actually, the saliva of the Black Dragon tribe's Gerard Black Dragons, after being refined, could produce some valuable materials which could be used to create delicacies. These delicacies and wines far exceeded their counterparts in the material planes in taste and flavor. Eating the finest cuisines of the infernal realm was a form of utter luxury. However, the price was similarly extravagant. Even ordinary food would cost up to 100 inkstones. It must be understood that a demigod spark would only be sold for 100 inkstones or so. So, there were plenty of entertainment venues, but the price in those venues scared off the vast majority of people. Linley's group followed the other tribe members, arriving in the most bustling, crowded area of Royal Wing City. Those 3 castles. Linley's eyes were filled with shock. From the left, in the distance, he could see an enormous castle that was completely formed from black sand. Deities possessed extremely good vision. It was clear that this castle was made from countless grains of black sand. The strangest thing was, the black sand was continually flowing about. But the castle itself didn't budge. On Linley's right, in the distance, there was an ancient castle made from violet rocks. At the top of the castle, there was a beautifully carved flower. This flower was a very familiar one, it was the insignia of the Redbud Army. A redbud flower. And right in front of Linley, there was an ancient violet castle, more than 100 meters high. Only, the violet color of this castle was so deep, it was nearly black. This castle had an enormous carving, a carving of a face. The face seemed very blurry, but the single devilish red eye on the face was extremely eye-catching. That is Black Sand Castle. Deborah pointed at the ancient castle formed from black sand. Any sort of trade can be carried out there, most of which is large scale. However, that place is a very secretive place with many competing interests. Little people like us had best not go there. Deborah then pointed towards the castle with the red bud. That place is a red bud castle. It is the most noble of trading places. They will accept our items at a price of 70% their selling price. When we sell things there, although we still lose a bit, it won't be very troublesome. And that castle? Linley pointed at the very devilish-looking castle that was straight in front of them. For some reason, that soul, devilish red eye in that blurry carved face made Linley's heart rate speed up, even though it was just a carving. That is the Fiend Castle. Deborah said. If you want to be a fiend, you can go there, pay the fee, then participate in the exam. Fiends generally will go to Fiend Castle. Alright, Linley, let's go to Redbud Castle. It's best to sell our things there. Black Sand Castle is a very complicated place. Look. The chief steward, Edmund, is entering Redbud Castle. This was Linley's first trip to Royal Wing City. Naturally, he didn't want to go to Black Sand Castle. After all, even a high god like Edmund was going to the safer Redbud Castle. Let's go. Linley led Bibi and Delia to follow the others, heading towards Redbud Castle as well. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 11, The Third Floor. In the Redbud Castle, there was a sea of people. The main gate of Redbud Castle was at least 100 meters wide, with the dense masses of people entering and leaving it. One could imagine how excellent business was doing in Redbud Castle. Linley's group of people saw Redbud Castle from afar. HRM, the Redbud Army. Linley noticed them right away. At the gates of Redbud Castle, there were over 10 soldiers dressed in violet uniforms, with a long violet cloak on the outside as well. The warriors all had those unique violet seals in the center of their forehead. It was the Redbud Army. The nearby Deborah laughed. There are Redbud castles throughout the entire Redbud continent. The master of these castles is the mighty sovereign, the Redbud ruler. Naturally, they are guarded by the Redbud Army. Actually, the Redbud Army soldiers here are nothing more than a display of force. After all, within Royal Wing City, who would dare to cause trouble? Only someone tired of living. Hey, that chief steward named Edmund. Why are they going to the back? Bibi's eyes were quite sharp. He discovered that Edmund's group of people had headed towards the back of Redbud Castle, and didn't go to the main gates. Linley had noticed this as well. Actually, although many people entered the main gates of Redbud Castle, there were quite a few people who were entering Redbud Castle through the rear gates as well. The number was not any lower than those going through the main gates, in fact. Linley, Redbud Castle is divided into the main gate and the rear gate. Those who go in through the main gates are all going to Redbud Castle for shopping, while those who enter through the rear gates do so because they are going to sell their own items to Redbud Castle. The jade-haired youth, Deborah, explained with a chuckle. Linley understood. So Redbud Castle didn't just sell items, it also purchased them. Let's hurry. Deborah urged. Holding Delia by the hand, Linley headed forward with Bibi by his side, following the flow of people through to the rear of Redbud Castle. After walking for several kilometers, Linley's group finally reached the rear gates of Redbud Castle. Indeed. The rear gates were over 100 meters wide as well, and a dense mass of people passed through them. Delia laughed. Most of those who are coming to sell items belong to the tribes and clans located outside Royal Wing City. There really are quite a few people here. Redbud Castle buys at 70% while sells at 100%. They earn a profit of 30%, this Redbud Castle is a place which devours gold. There isn't a chance for others to engage in this business. Linley chuckled. Behind the Redbud Castle was an almighty sovereign. And then, Linley's group followed the other members of the Black Dragon tribe into Redbud Castle. Although there were nearly 200 people in the Black Dragon tribe's group, upon entering Redbud Castle, they only made up an extremely small number of the total guests. This place is huge. Linley exhaled in shock. Linley's group, upon entering the first floor of Redbud Castle, discovered that the main hall of this first floor was 1 or 2,000 meters wide. This sort of width was an extremely extravagant sum. More than 10,000 people could pass through it without feeling cramped. There are quite a few deities who have come to sell their items. BB was clearly quite excited. The main hall of the first floor is for those who have come to sell demigod sparks, demigod artifacts, and other items worth 100 inkstones or less. Deborah said in a very practiced manner as he explained to Linley's group. For example, I've come to sell a god spark this time, so I will go to the second floor. In the main hall of the second floor, items like god sparks or god artifacts which are worth around or less than 10,000 inkstones or so can be sold. As for the third floor, that's the floor for selling high god artifacts, high god sparks, and other precious items that can be worth up to 1,000,000 inkstones, or even more. Linley's group followed the Black Dragon tribesmen up to the main hall of the second floor. But of course, more than half of the Black Dragon tribe's people stayed at the first floor's main hall. Clearly, these people had all come to sell fairly cheap items. Linley, look. There are many sales counters over there in the main hall, with many people seated there. Those people are the purchasers for Redbud Castle. Haha, have a good look. I'll go sell some things first. Deborah waved towards Linley's group, then headed directly to one of the sales counters in the main hall of the second floor. After Deborah left, Linley and the other two exchanged glances. Let's go to the third floor, Linley said. Linley's group had quite a few treasures on them. 2 high god artifacts, and a high god spark. These were all exceedingly valuable items. The stairs going from the main hall of the first to second floor were all exceedingly large, but the stairs from the main hall of the second floor to the main hall of the third floor was much narrower. Even the gateway into the hall was a full size smaller, and the number of people was much lower as well. Obviously, the number of people who were selling precious items was much lower than those selling items in the first and second floors. Edmund. Linley saw that up above, Edmund had led his 3 subordinates directly into the gateway to the third floor. At the gateway to the third floor, an employee wearing a long violet robe seemed to chat with Edmund about something, and then Edmund took out a divine spark. Why did Edmund take out the divine spark? Linley was somewhat puzzled. And then, the violet-robed man let them through. Edmund led his 3 subordinates into the third floor. When Linley's group reached the doorway to the third floor, the violet-robed man stretched his hand out, stopping Linley's group from going through. Huh? Linley's group looked curiously at the man. What have you come to sell? Let me take a look, the violet-robed said. Seeing the puzzled look on the faces of Linley's group, he laughed calmly. Is this your first time? This third floor is different from the lower floors. Every person who enters has to present an item for inspection. Otherwise, no entry is permitted. Linley now understood. Thinking back to what Edmund had just done, he now knew what that was all about. But right at that moment, 2 youngsters walked past Linley, ignoring the violet-robed men as they headed directly into the third floor. Hey, how come they didn't have to show any items? BB said in confusion. The violet-robed man was fairly patient and good-tempered. With a calm laugh, he said, didn't you notice? They all had fiend medallions on their chests. They are fiends. As fiends, we have faith in their reputation. When they come, they will definitely have brought quite a few valuable items. There's no need for them to be inspected. Linley sighed to himself, fiends. They don't have to pay any fees when entering the city, and they don't have to be inspected when entering the third floor of Redbud Castle. Their status really is different. While thinking this to himself, Linley retrieved the black dagger with a flip of his hands. This black dagger was the High God artifact which Atkins had left behind after his Divine Darkness clone had been slain. Go in. The violet-robed man nodded. They entered the third floor of Redbud Castle. This main hall was clearly a size smaller, but it was still hundreds of meters wide. Only, the people here were clearly much sparser in number. That's the place where they buy items. BB ran up ahead as the three of them headed towards a sales counter. But right at this moment, Lord Edmund, look. The chief steward of the Black Dragon tribe, Edmund, and his three subordinates had noticed Linley's group. Lord Edmund, aren't they members of our tribe? Those three who were amongst the five who were making their first trips to Royal Wing City? They actually came to the third floor. Edmonds looked at the distant Linley and the other two. There were only 5 people for whom this trip to Royal Wing City with the Black Dragon tribe truly was their first trip. Edmund had seen all of them. Naturally, he recognized and remembered Linley's group. I didn't expect that these 3 had a fortune on them. Edmund's eyes narrowed, and a cold light flashed through them. It seems our tribe's internal supervisory abilities are insufficient. In the infernal realm, when one's wealth reached a certain level, there would be others who would desire it. If you wanted to peacefully enjoy your fortune of 1,000,000 inkstones which you had spent hundreds of millions of years accumulating, you might just find that some other experts would take it all from you. This wouldn't have been the first or second time for Edmund's group to have done such a thing. Don't worry, milord. Since we already know now, the 3 of them won't be able to escape you. When we leave Royal Wing City, we can make our move then. The nearby god said insidiously. Edmund nodded. Everyone allowed to enter the third floor had items that were worth at least 1,000,000 inkstones. Even a high god such as Edmund would be desirous of such a fortune. At a row of sales counter on the side of the third floor's main hall, there were violet-robed employees seated at every counter. Linley's group walked towards one of them, a silver-haired old man. HRM. The violet-robed, silver-haired old man raised his head and smiled calmly. What are you selling? Take it out. Linley and the other 2 glanced at each other, and then with a flip of his hand, Linley withdrew that black dagger and gave it to the silver-haired old man. This high god artifact. Although Linley's group was still in possession of the Spear of Cortez and that high god spark. This was Linley's group's first trip into Royal Wing City. There were many things they didn't know about yet. Linley's group wasn't in a hurry either. After all, if they truly needed money desperately, they could come again. In addition, Redbud Castle wasn't the only place which purchased goods. There was also that Black Sand Castle. Only, there was a great deal of intrigue and competitive forces within Black Sand Castle. It was rather disorderly and chaotic. Without gaining a good understanding of the situation, Linley wouldn't be in a hurry to go there. This dagger really is quite fine. The violet-robed elder nodded in praise. It is indeed a high god artifact, and its previous owner should have been a high god who trained in the laws of darkness who had used this dagger to kill quite a few experts. It has a very thick murderous aura. Not bad. We will buy this dagger for a price of 750,000 inkstones. Are you willing to sell? The violet-robed elder made his decision. Linley nodded. Fine. Based on his calculations, Linley had been planning to sell this item for a price of 700,000 inkstones, which would have been a fine price. Thus, this price of 750,000 inkstones made Linley quite satisfied. Linley understood that perhaps this dagger was an excellent high god artifact and that perhaps he had been taken slight advantage of. But Linley didn't care too much about such a small sum. This is 100 azaites, equivalent to 100,000 inkstones. 200,000, 300,000, as he spoke, the violet-robed elder brought out large pieces of azure stones out. Linley immediately understood. As I thought. When Linley's group had killed those gods, they had acquired a few azure-colored stones. At that time, Linley had hypothesized that those azure stones were a form of currency, because their aura was identical to the aura of the inkstones. Only, the aura was far stronger. A single azurite was shaped in a square which was 1 centimeter long. The ones which this violet-robed elder brought out, however, were square slabs that were 10 centimeters long and 1 centimeter wide. Indeed, this larger azurite slab was equivalent to 100 smaller azurite stones. In other words, it was worth 100,000 inkstones. 7 azurite slabs and 5 long azurite stones. 750,000. Collect them. The violet-robed elder handed them to Linley. Dare I ask, aside from using them to purchase items, do these inkstones and azurites have any other purpose? Linley still had the feeling that the unique aura of these azurites and inkstones should have some special purpose. The violet-robed elder's eyes lit up. Glancing sideways at Linley, he laughed calmly. It's useless for you to know this information, so there's no need for you to ask. Linley was curious, but since this person wasn't willing to tell, Linley didn't pursue this line of questioning. If you go through that gate in the main hall, you will arrive at the main hall on the other side. If you want to buy something, you can go to that main hall. The violet-robed elder said. Linley had guessed this long ago. This was because Redbud Castle's main gate was reserved for people buying things, while the rear gate was reserved for people selling things to the castle employees. It was one structure with 2 sides. Let's go take a look. Delia was very curious. I wonder what the infernal realm has. Bibi was excited as well. Linley laughed and nodded, then followed through the 3rd floor's corridor to the other main hall on the 3rd floor. From afar. HRM. They are going to the main hall on the other side. Edmund, noticing this, couldn't help but frown. He immediately instructed his subordinates, go wait at the main gates. And you go to the rear gates. Keep watch on those 3. Yes, milord. The 2 gods immediately left. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 12, Instant Refining. After passing through the corridor, Linley's group arrived at the main hall on the other side of the 3rd floor of Redbud Castle, where a large number of wares were on display. On this hall, there were clearly far more people present, most in groups of 3 to 5 people who walked along each of the sales counters, carefully inspecting each item. Boss, look. Bibi pointed at the stairway. There's nobody at the stairway standing guard. Anyone who wants to come here can. It isn't like the other side, where those violet-robed men stand guard. Delia laughed. Bibi, they have their goods on display here. Naturally, they have to show them off to people. But as I see it, although there are many people here looking at the goods, there probably aren't many who are truly buying. There were signs with words hanging off the walls behind all of the sales counters throughout the 3rd floor. Linley was very surprised. Offensive artifacts, defensive artifacts, medicines, materials, training support items, divine sparks. Clearly, the many different sales counters here in the 3rd floor all had different products for sale. Linley, look. That one over there is selling houses. Delia pointed towards a corner of the main hall. I've always heard that establishing oneself in Royal Wing City is very expensive. Let's take a look and see how expensive the houses here are. Linley was curious. He led Bibi and Delia over. There were many deities over here, watching. Everyone, you are very lucky. In Royal Wing City, there are currently 3 houses left which have no owners. Everyone, seize your chance. If you miss this opportunity, there won't be another one. Within the sales counter, a violet-robed youth spoke calmly. The entire Royal Wing City only has 3 empty houses. Linley didn't dare believe it. A nearby onlooker glanced at Linley. My friend, the houses of Royal Wing City were all snatched up and purchased hundreds of millions of years ago. The houses that can be bought now are all houses where the owners have died, resulting in Redbud Castle then selling the houses off again. That's why we don't need to be in a rush to buy. You must understand that Royal Wing City has perhaps tens of millions of citizens. In a short period of time, perhaps others will die. Their houses would then be available for purchase, right? But alas, the prices are too expensive. I'll wait for a cheaper house first. Hearing these words, Linley now understood. The available houses in Royal Wing City were only made available for sale after their original owner died. Houses without owners would return to the ownership of Redbud Castle, who would then continue to sell them. That makes sense. Royal Wing City, despite banning fighting, has tens of millions of citizens who can't always be within the city. For example, some fiends, they have to go out to take missions. If they die, then the houses would return to Redbud City. Linley only felt puzzled about one thing. How did Redbud Castle know if a house's owner was deceased? Perhaps they have some techniques akin to binding by blood. Linley guessed to himself. While considering this question, Linley, Delia, and Bibi drew near the sales counter to look at the price of these three houses. Upon seeing the listed price, the three of them were terrified. What a man-eating price! Bibi breathed in shock. Even the cheapest house requires 60 million inkstones. Linley was shocked as well. Of the three houses, the most expensive one was nearly 300 million inkstones, while the second one was around 120 million inkstones. The cheapest one still costs 60 million inkstones. Indeed, it is too expensive. Why can't some more of the original owners of the cheaper houses die? A nearby deity also grumbled angrily. The cheapest houses in Royal Wing City can be bought for just 8 million inkstones. However, as soon as those cheap houses appear, they will immediately be snatched up. A nearby god sighed. How long will it take before I am able to afford a 60 million inkstone house? Linley nodded to himself. Not all houses were the same. Some were ridiculously expensive, but from the sound of it, the cheaper ones were only 8 million or so. It was a matter of luck. After all, everyone wanted those cheap houses. As soon as one appeared, it might be instantly taken. Becoming a citizen of Royal Wing City truly is difficult. Linley let out a sigh. He had thought that he was now fairly wealthy, but upon seeing the housing prices, he realized that the high god spark he had, which was worth 7 million inkstones, really was nothing at all. Linley's group of three left the sales counter. After all, they didn't actually want to buy houses. Linley was planning to travel to the distant Blood Ridge continent. How could he settle down in the city? Offensive artifacts. Linley and the other two walked past the long row of counters on this side. Business here clearly was very brisk, and there were many onlookers as well. But Linley himself was greatly shocked. This is considered an offensive artifact. Linley didn't pay attention to ordinary weapons. But he had discovered a unique weapon, an arrow. Linley wouldn't be surprised at the sale of a godly bow, but a single ordinary arrow, this couldn't help but cause Linley to be startled. And the price is set at 50,000 inkstones. What? You have to buy them in units of 10. Linley couldn't help but shake his head. The violet-robed salesman, seeing Linley stare at the arrow on the counter while shaking his head, couldn't help but speak out. This is a God's Lair arrow. Generally speaking, if a full god is hit by this arrow, he will definitely die. Even a high god, upon being hit by 10 arrows, will most likely have his soul dissipate and his spirit shatter. How is that possible? Bibi stared. This arrow is just a material attack. How could it so easily kill someone? Material attack. The violet-robed salesman snickered. If it was just an ordinary arrow, how could it be sold here? This arrow has been dipped in a special soul poison developed by a high god of the Edicts of Death. Humph, this is specially meant for dealing with souls. Hearing this, Linley couldn't help but be intrigued. Soul poison? When I was in the Yulon continent, when I encountered that grand warlock, didn't he have Yale use soul poison to kill me? Linley had drank that wine. Then suffered the attack of the soul silk poison. Linley knew long ago that some of the experts who trained in the edicts of death were skilled in using soul poison to kill. That grand warlock was only a demigod. But now, from the sound of it, this poison was made by a high god of the edicts of death. Then the power of this poison definitely couldn't be underestimated. It most likely truly was capable of killing a god in a single strike, and 10 for a high god was about right as well. But although it is powerful, you still have to be able to hit your enemy with it. Linley understood this principle. Neither a god nor a high god would just stand there, letting you hit him at leisure. However, there were some people who were skilled in assassination. In addition, when 10,000 people in an army shot out with bows, anyone, no matter how fast, would most likely be finished. Linley, Delia, and BB continued to look at the various items. They discovered that there truly were far too many ways to spend money. Many of the items here had effects that were simply terrifying. They continued to walk forward. Medicines. Linley walked to a nearby counter. He was shocked. No matter how badly injured one's soul is, as long as one's soul hasn't completely been shattered and dissipated, it will heal instantly and the spiritual energy will also be completely recovered. This was created with great care by a high god who was a master of the edicts of life. Linley stared at the explanation placed atop the crystalline medicine jar. He couldn't help but be interested. When executing soul attacks, the greatest cost was to one's spiritual energy. But as soon as he saw the price, Linley felt his heart ache in pain. A single pill cost 1,000,000 inkstones. Let's go. Stop looking at these. Linley felt his heart clenching. Many items were good, but the prices were simply too terrifying. After seeing many items, Linley's group left the third floor's main hall. The prices here were simply too terrifying. Linley's group thus returned to the second floor. The second floor had many people and many items. It even had golden soul pearls. However, in the infernal realm, golden soul pearls couldn't be considered particularly valuable. Because in the infernal realm, although there were many deities, there were even more saints. Many races in the infernal realm would naturally reach the saint level in adulthood. With so many saints, quite a few of these saints had their souls used for refining souls into golden soul pearls. A single golden soul pearl, roughly the same size as the one I previously acquired. The price, 100,000 inkstones. Whew. Still pretty expensive. Linley said to himself. At this time, the violet-robed salesman behind the counter laughed and said, "This golden soul pearl can be used for strengthening the soul, and it is easily absorbable. It doesn't have to be refined. There's another type of gem here. That one over there. It is known as an amethyst. If you absorb all of the energy within it, in terms of the amount of benefit it provides to your soul, it is roughly on par with that of a golden soul pearl. The price, however, is only 10,000 inkstones." The violet-robed salesman said. Linley was somewhat startled. The nearby BB spoke out. "Oh? You said the amount of benefit is about the same for nourishing the soul. So why is the difference in price nearly 10 times? It's too much." The violet-robed salesman laughed. "That's because this refining and purifying this amethyst is extremely difficult. A person who isn't an expert in refining will most likely lose 80% of the power the amethyst holds while refining it, leaving only 20% remaining, and the speed is very slow as well. It takes a lot of time. Thus, the price is only 10,000 inkstones. Refining and purifying." Linley had a thought. Actually, deities of the edicts of death had to spend a great amount of spiritual energy in refining souls or in refining these amethysts. But Linley was different. He had the coiling dragon ring. "I'll buy one and give it a try." Let's see if the coiling dragon ring is capable of refining an amethyst just like how it refines souls. Linley said to himself. Linley immediately spent 10,000 inkstones to buy an amethyst. The amethyst was semi-translucent, and it contained a blurry, violet fog within it. It seemed very beautiful. With a flip of his hand, Linley stored the amethyst into his coiling dragon ring. Crackle! In almost the blink of an eye, that amethyst was transformed into a pile of rubble, while at the same time, an enormous amount of golden fog began to swirl about within the coiling dragon ring. The refining had already completed. Linley's eyes lit up. Doesn't that mean I can buy amethysts and refine them into golden soul pearls? This meant that he could buy an amethyst for 10,000 inkstones, and then sell them for 70,000 inkstones. This was a profit of 700% to 800%. He currently had roughly 1,000,000 inkstones. In but a few cycles, he would then have tens of millions of inkstones. Wait. The coiling dragon ring only refines it to a golden fog. How would I crystallize them into a golden pearl? Linley didn't have any idea as to how to cause the golden fog to crystallize. The golden fog was soul essence. Linley didn't have any means to compress it. There was no way his divine power could interact with this sort of soul essence. His spiritual energy could, but upon the spiritual energy drawing near, it would begin to absorb the golden fog and strengthen his soul. Unfortunately, although I have a good method of making money, I don't have any way of condensing the golden fog into a golden pearl. Linley sighed to himself. The refining, purifying, and condensing of soul essences belonged to a technique of the edicts of death. Linley also wanted to be able to fill the golden fog into a crystal ball. He trusted that the golden fog stored within a crystal ball could be sold to someone. At worst, the price would be a bit lower than for the golden soul pearl. He would still be able to make a killing. But this golden aura, although I control it through the coiling dragon ring and I can make it leave the ring, as soon as it does so, it will begin to dissipate. After it leaves the coiling dragon ring, I don't have any way of controlling it. Naturally, I won't be able to make it enter a crystal ball. Linley felt very discouraged. Linley was completely incapable of controlling this golden fog. He didn't understand the edicts of death. Thus, his spiritual energy naturally devoured the soul essences as soon as they touched. Perhaps others might understand the edicts of death, but they couldn't possibly control something like the coiling dragon ring. Forget it. It is already good to be able to strengthen my own soul. Linley didn't care too much. The purpose of him coming to the infernal realm was to grow and to break through. As for money, he just needed enough to use. These amethysts, give me 10 of them. Linley said. The more powerful the soul, the faster one would train, and the stronger one's spiritual attacks would be. Linley naturally wouldn't be too stingy. Amethysts. The violet-robed salesman was very puzzled. It was very hard to refine amethysts. One was enough. Why 10 more? But the violet-robed salesman didn't really care. Perhaps he's too poor. He'd rather spend time to slowly absorb amethysts rather than buy a golden soul pearl. But how could he have known that Linley had a sovereign artifact that was able to instantly refine amethysts and purify the soul essences within?